Good evening and welcome to our council meeting. I call to order the Lake Havasu City Council regular meeting on Tuesday, February 28th, 2023 at 6 p.m. We'll now have an invocation from Pastor Jesse Cano from Living Word Family Church, followed by the Pledge of Allegiance from Kim Zanin from the Court-Appointed Special Advocate.
Heavenly Father, we ask that you bless our city of Lake Havasu City. Right now, Lord, we just lift up our mayor. We lift up all our elected city council members, Lord, to you. We ask that you grant them your spirit of wisdom and understanding. Give them your counsel, give them your might. We ask, Lord, that you help them to make bold and righteous decisions for our city. We ask that we pray for our first responders, for our police department, our fire department, our city workers, and all our hospital workers. We thank you, Lord, as you bless our city and you watch over our city. And we thank you, Lord, in Jesus' mighty name. Amen.
Amen.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you and welcome, Kim Zanin from the Court-Appointed Special Advocate. Thank you for being here. If you could share a little bit about your organization with us.
I would love to. So as he said, my name is Kimberly Zanin. Our program is actually called Casa, all capital letters. I am the coordinator here in Havasu, but I also work in the whole Mojave County. My position is to recruit volunteers in our community. So I get out there, I talk about Casa. Casa is court-appointed special advocate for children in the foster system. So that means every child that goes into the system, my job is to put a volunteer with that child. As of right now in Mojave County, we have 534 children in our system. And I don't think half of us know what's going on with our system in that area. So I go out and recruit for volunteers to walk alongside. Our volunteers are the eyes and ears for the judge. We spend quality time with the children. We take them out for lunch. We don't take them home. They do not live with us. They don't. We actually aren't even allowed to bring them to our home or interact with our family unless they are a CASA volunteer as well. We take them into places to get to know them, to walk with them, and to find out what's going on with them and their hearts and everything with them so that we can go into the courtroom and stand up for them and be a voice for those children that so often get left behind. So that's what we do, and that's my job, is to get out there. Our volunteers make a big difference in the child's life, and I'll just talk about some of the statistics. Is when a child has a CASA, they're least likely to get in trouble outside of the foster system. As some of you know, a lot of 90-something% of our children that are in the foster system end up in human trafficking. So if with a CASA, that child is less likely to be part of that. They're more likely to also move on in education and get into the schools and become something more than what the system has put them into. As I said, all of our judges in the Mojave County appreciate and love our CASAs because of what we get to do, and they do listen to our voice. So when a child is in need and maybe the system isn't working 100% for them, we get to go in there and say, Judge, this is what is best for this child. And our judges here in Mojave County listens to our volunteers. I do have quite a few of them here in the audience with me. I'm very blessed to have such an amazing team already here in Havasu. When I came on last July, I had 3 volunteers in Havasu. By the end of March, I should have at least 20. So we are making an impact, but as you can see, at 534 children, we need more volunteers. So if you know of anybody or you would like more information, I am more than willing to come and meet you or talk to you. Half of my volunteers have had, it's called Casa Coffee with Kim. I usually can convince you to become a volunteer within a few cups of coffee. So my number is 928-727-4235. If anybody would like to talk to me, I also will stay and I'll be in the back of the room with some flyers or some more information. Or if you'd like to speak to one of our volunteers, they'll be more than happy to also give you some of that information. Thank you very much.
Thank you. And thank you for being here. The next item on the agenda is the roll call. Ms. Williams, if you please call the roll.
Council members Nancy Campbell. Here. Michelle Lynn. Here. Cameron Moses.
Still here.
Jenny Koch.
Here.
Jim Dolan.
Here.
Vice Mayor David Lane.
Here.
Mayor Cal Sheehy.
Here.
Thank you.
Thank you. Item 5 is our consent agenda. Would any of the council members like to remove any of the items for separate discussion?
Mayor,
Yeah, Councilmember Koch.
motion to approve the consent agenda as presented.
Second.
We have a motion from Councilmember Koch and a second from Vice Mayor Lane. Is there any additional discussion? We're ready to vote.
Motion carries 7-0.
Thank you. All right, we'll move on to item 6, which is correspondence, communications, petitions, announcements, and the city manager report. Item 6.1 is the investment report as of December 31st, 2022. Ms. Olson included this in our packet, and it's posted on our website for the record. Are there any questions for Ms. Olson? All right, moving on to item 6.2 is announce vacancies on Lake Havasu City boards, committees, and commissions. Ms. Williams?
Thank you, Mayor and City Council. There are several vacancies on Lake Havasu City boards, committees, and commissions. The following is a listing of those vacancies. Board of Adjustment, 2 alternate member positions. Anyone interested can pick up a packet at City Hall, and they are also available on the city's website at lhcaz.gov. Thank you.
Thank you. Item 6.3 is our city manager's report. Good evening, Mr. Knudsen.
Good evening, Mayor. Good evening, Council. You may be happy to know that it's a very short report this evening. We have a lot of items to discuss. But some really great news lately, and some people to recognize and some agencies to recognize here. Mayor Sheehy, you and Vice Mayor David Lane and Councilmembers Nancy Campbell and Cameron Moses joined me and our Parks and Recreation Director Mike Keene at the opening ceremony for the last 4 pickleball courts that were recently now constructed and open to the public. The day was proclaimed in honor of Mike Delaney, and the complex was named the Mike Delaney Pickleball Complex at Dick Samp Park, thanking him for his service and generous donations over the years to the pickleball community. I believe his donations were just shy of $500,000 in sum that was donated to Lake Havasu City to build these pickleball courts. So again, thank you to Mr. Delaney. He was previously known as Mr. Anonymous. Special thanks also to our Parks and Recreation and our Public Works crews for their hard work throughout the project and moving this forward. Vice Mayor David Lane, you attended a ribbon cutting to celebrate ASU Lake Havasu's 10-year anniversary on behalf of the city. It's already 10 years. ASU at Lake Havasu continues to grow in enrollment and has successfully graduated over 200 students from more than 20 different degree programs. So congratulations to ASU at Lake Havasu. In the photo, Vice Mayor Lane, you're joined by Carla Hackleroad, who is the Executive Director at ASU Lake Havasu. Also pictured is Rich Stanley, the Senior Vice President and University Planner, and past Executive Director, Dr. David Young. Vice Mayor David Lane, you also attended the Elks Essay Award ceremony for both the Americanism Essay Contest and the Drug Awareness Contest. In total, there were 27 winners, and I'm told that one 6th grader from Nallis Elementary School, who is Mercy Person, won first place in both essay contests, which is pretty outstanding. So congratulations to Mercy and all of the contest winners. And lastly, 50 years ago on March 29th, 1973, that was when the last of the American troops were withdrawn from South Vietnam. 15 years ago, the Tri-Cities of Kingman, Bullitt City, and Lake Havasu proclaimed March 29th, 2008, and every year thereafter as Vietnam Veterans Day in our respective cities. 10 years ago, Lake Havasu City solidified a partnership with the Vietnam War Commemorative Partnership Program to acknowledge this day and honor all who served active duty between November 1st, 1955 and May 5th, 1975, regardless of the duty location. On Wednesday, March 29th at 10:30 a.m., we celebrate our veterans and these milestones. The city, along with the Elks Lodge 2399, the Friends of the Fair, Marine Corps League 757, and many veteran organizations host another Welcome Home Vietnam Veterans Day outdoor cookout event at the Friends of the Fair Rodeo Grounds. All veterans are invited to attend this outdoor cookout event, and anybody that supports our veterans in Lake Havasu City is invited to attend. There is no RSVP required. And with that, Mayor and Council, that concludes my presentation and for this evening.
Thank you, Mr. Knudsen. All right, we'll move on to item 7, which is our public hearings. We'll have a series of public hearings followed by the next item on the agenda, which is a call to the public. During the public hearings, we'll have a presentation, discussion between council, and then we'll open up the public hearing for any public comment. You don't have to sign up for those comments, but some people did. We'll go in that order first. There is a light indicator box next to Ms. Williams near the podium. You have green means you have time, yellow means that you have 1 minute remaining, and then red means that your time is up for that area. We do encourage you to talk during the public hearing items, so that way we can have a two-way conversation. At call to the public, we can just listen intently. We won't be able to have a two-way conversation if you choose to wait to the very final item. So with that, we'll start with item 7.1, which is a presentation from Clifton Larson Allen, LLP, on the fiscal year 2022 audit results and any findings. Turn it over to Ms. Ware.
Good evening, Mayor and Council. This evening, yes, we have a presentation from Clifton Larson Allen. There are auditors, the city's external auditors. We have Sandy Cronstrom and Richard Gillespie, both of Clifton Larson Allen, on remotely, and they'll present the results.
Good evening, Mayor, Vice Mayor, and members of Council. I'm Richard Gillespie, a director at Clifton Larson Allen, and also on the line is Sandy Cronstrom, a principal at CLA. So what I was going to do is go through the reporting package in front of you. There's 5 different pieces. The first is the communication to governance. The second is the annual comprehensive financial report. Third is the single audit report. Fourth, the HERF report. And fifth, the expenditure limitation report. The governance communication includes the overview of the audit, the accounting policies, accounting estimates, and any uncorrected misstatements, as well as other required governance communication. Second is the annual comprehensive financial report, also known as the ACFR. The components of the ACFR include the basic financial statements, the combining and individual fund financial statements and schedules, as well as the required supplementary information, the statistics section, and then the introductory section. We rendered an unmodified opinion on the financial statements, which is a clean opinion. And then third is the single audit report. And this includes the report for government auditing standards, and as well as the uniform guidance, which is a federal compliance audit. There was no findings, no internal control deficiencies, as well as no compliance findings. The 2 major programs tested for our federal award testing was the Airport Improvement Program, as well as the Federal Transit Formula Grant Program. There was no findings for either of these programs or no internal control deficiencies. The total coverage of total federal awards tested was 85%, so we did a pretty deep testing of all the expenditures of federal awards. Fourth is the Highway User Revenue Fund compliance, which is an examination report to determine compliance for expenditures that are received through the Highway User Revenue Fund. We select a sample of accounts payable and payroll disbursements during the testing, and there was no findings for this as well. Lastly is the annual expenditure limitation report. The total expenditure limitation for the city during fiscal year 2022 was $136 million, and then the expenditure amount subject to limitation for fiscal year 2022 was $76.8. So the city was well within the expenditure limitation. And now I'll pass it off to Sandy Cronstrom.
Good evening. Richard's gone through all the reports. One thing I wanted to mention for this year is we had a fairly large governmental accounting standards board statement that that the city had to implement related to leases. So the lease receivables for any properties or items that the city leases to other entities had to get recorded as a receivable and a deferred inflow of resources, and then previous leases that used to previously be considered operating leases got brought onto the city's books as an asset and then an offsetting liability. It was a pretty large implementation for Lake Havasu City, and quite a bit of information that needed to be pulled in there. And I wanted to kind of give a shout out to the finance department for getting that done in a timely manner, but also, as most of you are well aware, the last couple years with the new ERP implementation, that the audit schedule's kind of gotten bumped back a little bit. And so not only did they implement a large standard, but they also pulled the audit schedule back up to where it used to be, where we would come up there in September and early October and then issue the report by the end of December. So wanted to give a shout out to your finance department, because that was that's a big deal. They got it done, and no findings, and we're all finished. So with that, I'd be happy to answer any questions. Richard and I would.
Excellent. Thank you so much for the report. And I think your report is just a testament to the fine professionals we have in finance, led by Ms. Olson and Ms. Ware, and the work that you do to ensure transparent and accurate data and information that's reported. So thank you for that. Are there any questions or comments from members of the council for Ms. Ware or for Mr. Gillespie or Ms. Constrom?
Mr. Mayor.
Vice Mayor Lane?
Thank you. Mr. Mayor, I don't have any questions, but I do have a comment. I think it's quite remarkable with the amount of reports that our finance department is doing, and that there were no findings. There was nothing bad in those reports. There were no mistakes. And that's just a testament to the professionalism of that unit. And I just want to say thank you for keeping such close eye on the city's finances and all of the reports that are required, both federally and at the state level and here at the local level. So thank you for that.
All right, this is a public hearing. Would anyone like to address the city council on this item? Seeing none, we'll close the public hearing and bring it back to council for discussion or any additional questions. Entertain a motion.
Mr. Mayor, motion.
Yeah, Vice Mayor Lane.
I move to accept Lake Havasu City's audited annual financial report and audit results for the fiscal year that ended June 30th of 2022.
Second.
We have a motion from Vice Mayor Lane and a second from Councilmember Campbell. Is there any additional discussion? Hearing none, we're ready to vote.
Motion carries 7-0.
Thank you. All right. Moving on to item 7.2 is discussion and possible action to introduce ordinance number 23-1307, amending City Code Chapter 2.04, Sections 2.04.080 and 2.04.280 to revise regular meeting times and how council members request items for further research to be placed on the agenda. Ms. Gary?
Good evening, Mayor and Council. At the recent planning session for the City Council of 2023, council members were given the opportunity to present items that they would like to discuss further at a future date. Two of the items that were requested during the planning session are going to be discussed tonight. Both are from Chapter 2.04, if possible changes will be made, and it's regarding how council members request items to be put on agendas, and also to discuss the timing of City Council meetings. This will be the time for council to discuss that. If you wish to move forward with any changes, staff has prepared an ordinance that you can revise and let us know how you want that to read, and then we can help you with the motion if that is the case. We've also provided some examples from other cities regarding city council requests, just for your consideration and hopefully to aid you in your conversation today. But at this time, we'll turn it over to you and let you discuss the items that you wish.
Yeah, thank you, Ms. Gary. So this item was brought forward during our annual planning session, as Ms. Gary had mentioned, by Councilmember Koch. Councilmember Koch, I'll turn it over to you to present your thoughts on this item.
Thank you, Mayor. So it's been brought to my attention via email that there was some information maybe dispersed out within the public of things that were not necessarily, if you read the article in the newspaper, I think Michael did a great job. This was brought up because it's in the same section as the timing of the meeting. So one of my main concerns was that we address the time of the meeting. We've been having some really lengthy meetings, and I know we have a lot of kids that come as a requirement for school. So one of my suggestions was that we discuss possibly moving the time of the meeting up. But within that same section was also something that we had discussed a couple of years ago, or a year ago, 2 years ago, regarding how items get put on the agenda. And I thought it was a good time to revisit that just to see if that's working, if we like that, if we have any changes we want to make, any discussions we want to make. And then in order for this to even move forward, there had to be a majority of the council that said this is something we wanted to discuss further at the retreat, and it was brought forward that there was a majority that did. So based on my article the article that Michael wrote, my thoughts were pretty open that I just wanted to have dialogue and conversation. There have been a few things that have been brought forward as a council agenda item that were not within the jurisdiction of the council. And I think it caused some confusion in the public that we were able to do some things that we were not. And so just some of those types of things have been brought to my attention in the past by people who are confused. Why, if it wasn't within your jurisdiction, why are you bringing it to a council meeting? And so it was just a time to have that discussion if we were going to be discussing that section of the code. So that is where the item came from, and it was purely for discussion. There was no underlying motive. Just wanted to revisit that conversation that we had already had, see if we like how it's been working, if we want to make any changes, and if so, if we're already going to discuss that section, this is the time to do that. So that is where my topic came from at the retreat, and then there was a majority to move it forward and to bring it here tonight. So that was where this came from. So thank you, Mayor.
Yeah, thank you, Councilmember Koch. Is there any other comments, Vice Mayor Lane?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, and thank you to Councilmember Koch for requesting that this come before us. I want to give a little bit of history on the way this came about and my thoughts on the issue. So back before we had this mayor and before we had this city manager, if we wanted to have something put on the agenda, the city manager and the mayor had the authority to say, no, you can't do that. That wasn't the right way to do business. So when Mayor Sheehy took office, he said, that's not going to happen any longer. If somebody wants it put on the agenda, it will be put on the agenda and he won't block it. If it's appropriate for the council to discuss, if it's within the jurisdiction of the council. And only things that are within the jurisdiction of the council should ever be discussed by our council. So then we did that for a couple of years, but then we had another discussion, and we had council members that felt that we should be able to, in the council meeting, make a motion to put something on the agenda. And then if a second council member would second that, then it would be put on the agenda. And what happened with that was we had items that got put on the agenda that weren't necessarily under the jurisdiction of the city council. And as Council Member Koch said, that caused some confusion in the city. I can give a prime example. When we talked about the school buses, that came forward. That's not under the purview of having students being transported to school using city transportation. The people of Lake Havasu have a school board that they elected. They're not subordinate to us. They are equal to us, and they handle all things related to students. So that wasn't something that should be discussed at a city council, but because two council members requested it, we had to have that open discussion, and it caused a lot of confusion. So I really, truly believe that there's another alternative. So how do we go about that? I have a suggestion. My suggestion is, if a council member wants something on the agenda, the council member goes and has a talk with the mayor and says, I'd like to have this put on the agenda. When they have their discussion, if it is something under the purview of the city council, it shall be put on the agenda. Plain and simple. That council member doesn't need a second from anybody else. We're adults. If they want to put it on the agenda, they can have it put on the agenda. It just has to be under the purview of the city council. I think that's the proper way to do it because everybody here is an adult. They know what's supposed to be on the agenda and what's not. So we can move forward with that. Now, there was some confusion. I received a lot of emails from people who felt that we were relinquishing our responsibilities to the mayor, so only he would have that authority to put things on the agenda. That's not true. Wherever that information came from, it is false. How could we relinquish it when the conversation to take place on how we were going to put items on the agenda is happening right now? We didn't have this discussion before, so we couldn't have relinquished anything. So it's happening right here and right now. The public is here to put in their input, and we'll be able to move forward from there. So with that, thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you, Vice Mayor Lane. Are there any other comments from members of the council? Councilmember Lynn?
Mr. Mayor, I was one of the council members that requested discussing about the buses in the school district. And we do have intergovernment agreements with the school district. So I think it was worthy for us to have the conversation. And then we talked it out and decided that that wasn't something that we could do. So I think that was fine. That was put out in the public. It is not something that was out of our jurisdiction at all. We have intergovernment agreements all the time with the school district, with their ball fields, with their after school programs. So with that being said, the item that we're talking about is, and I'm going to be completely transparent here. On Thursday of last week, I received the paper copy of this agenda item, and this is what it is stated. Any member of the council may request that an item be researched further or placed on the agenda for consideration, discussion, or legal action by semicolon. And what is crossed out is 1, making a motion or receiving a second, no vote necessary during the future discussion items portion of the city council meeting, and then requesting council member will work with the city manager to determine the best course of action for handling the request, or crossed out. That's what we were doing. If you go to the back page, the number 2, which would go semicolon 2, now makes 2, 1, says submitting a written request to the mayor, and then the mayor will work with the council members and the city manager to determine the best course of action for handling the request. That takes it away from the council member if the mayor does not think it's, or the city manager doesn't determine it. That is where that came from. It was retracted with a new one just a few days ago that puts on their back any member of the council may request that an item be researched further or placed on the agenda or consideration, discussion, or legal action by 1, with a red line on it now, crossed out what was previously on there, or with a semicolon now, or number 2, what I read to you. So that is where that came from. Nothing was made up. There were no rumors. That was all factual. That was given to us as council members. And that's all I have to say on that.
Councilmember Lynn, Council Mayor and Council, that's my fault. And I take full responsibility for that. When I put this item together, I was trying to be more efficient by providing an ordinance, just in case there were changes that were made. But I didn't know what you guys were going to direct, if you were going to direct any changes at all. So I threw this ordinance on there as an attachment purely for discussion purposes. I had no idea what we're going to discuss other than I knew Jenny had brought up she didn't really like how we did the first and the second at the future call to agenda as far as a motion. And so I crossed that section off because it seemed like there was consensus like, hey, we don't really like doing that. We don't like how that's perceived and some of the issues that have arose because of that. So I felt comfortable striking that. It was never my intent to it was never meant to say that you're not going to replace that with something else. I hastily retracted that and provided it just so we would have an ordinance there. So in the event you did want to make changes, even if it wasn't to that section, maybe we were only going to change the time of the council meeting, maybe to 5:30 or 5, or leave it at 6. But if we were only going to make small changes, then at least we have the tool there to do it. Otherwise, this would just be a discussion. We'd have to come back for an introduction, and then we'd have to come back for an adoption. So we would be discussing these items, which are contentious and they don't always go well. We'd be discussing it 3 times instead of just 2. So that's my fault. I didn't mean anything by those crossouts. They were just track changes on an introduction item that this council hadn't even discussed. I received no direction whatsoever. There was no real consensus building because we didn't want to do consensus building on what it was going to say at the retreat. It was purely that these are the items that we want to discuss. So I tried to provide you tools. There is no conspiracy behind that. I had no intent in doing that. And as soon as it was brought to my attention, as soon as a council member called and said, I don't like the way this looked, I immediately corrected it. Period. It was all me. I didn't get direction from anyone to do that. I'm not trying to tell you what to do. I don't care how you guys decide to do it. You can tell me to put whatever you want in here. And as long as it's legal, I will do that freely for you. But this has been turned into like this huge big thing when it was nothing more than a hasty mistake on I don't even know that people actually read these. So I'm glad people read the track changes that I provide in as part of my council packets. That's great. But this really has been blown completely and totally out of proportion. I apologize for that. As soon as I learned that that's how it was perceived, I corrected it. And I really just hope we can get on to the discussion now, put this behind us. It's totally up to council how you do this. There's no agenda here, none whatsoever. So whatever you guys decide moving forward, that's what we'll do. Let's put this behind us. Let's just take a step forward.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you, Ms. Gary. Are there other comments from members of the council on this item?
Mayor,
Yeah, Councilmember Campbell?
at the retreat, when Councilwoman Koch brought up that she just kind of want to make it easier just to remove the first and the second because she didn't like the optics of that. I thought, I can see where she's coming from with that, without a doubt. I never knew that the intention was because Councilwoman Lynn and I may have put something on the agenda that wasn't in the jurisdiction of Lake Havasu City that I still find challenging because I believe everything we brought to the agendas this last year since we've changed this were under the jurisdiction. So then I realized this is not about making it just easier. And then when it says, okay, you strike all that, anybody can, but they must write the letter to the mayor. Well, I spoke to some people and they said that could possibly violate open meeting laws because maybe I've talked to 3 other council members already. Now I've got to write a letter to the mayor to ask him if I could put an item on the agenda. So we can make this really big or we can make this really, really simple. If we don't like the dynamics of, let's just say, the first and the second, I would like to say, like the county does, you submit a letter to the city clerk. She then works with the city manager and the staff and the council person to put the item on the agenda. At that particular time, we might get a bunch of in-house information later that there's no reason to move it towards out to the public, and we can come up with a discussion and say, we fixed it in-house. It was a leaky pipe, if you wanted to say that. We just repaired it. Done. But if at any particular time the staff does say, I'm sorry, the buck stops here, and we're not moving your agenda forward, I think that's criminal. Because at this point, you elected me, and I'm a smart enough person, and if they can't explain to me why they don't want it on there other than maybe they don't want the cabaret code discussed, then we have a problem. So then I would like to say at this point, then we take it back to a public session, and we say, I would like to motion to discuss this cabaret code. I'm using this as an example, and I get a second from Michelle Lynn. The staff has no jurisdiction at this point of blocking me. It's that simple of a fix. Any other way we do this, I think that we may jeopardize my right to be a voice for you. And the minute my voice may be taken away, there's no reason for me to be sitting here anymore. So I hope you understand that original letter, the original code that Councilwoman Lynn found that evening, where she saw that it was struck out, semicolon, and continued with only you have to write a letter to the mayor, and then the mayor will work with the city manager, and if they choose to move this item forward, this is what will happen. That to me is a problem. So again, instead of the mayor doesn't have to be involved in any of these discussions. It goes through the city clerk. The staff works with them, and that one particular council member, maybe 2, we're not in violation of any open public meeting laws, and we still get to have the voice of you. And if you think we're bringing crazy stuff to the council, don't elect us. That's what I have to say. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you for your comments. Yeah. But
Mayor,
yeah,
just point of clarification. I didn't point out any specific council people bringing specific items. I said in general council items. So I just would like that please note because I didn't specify names.
Yeah, thank you. I think it demonstrates kind of the awkwardness of the motion and second. In your illustration, Councilmember Campbell, you immediately orchestrated that it was you and Councilmember Lynn. I think that's what the conversation we're trying to have, just for your illustration purposes, is that the most efficient way to do? So the code section number 2 of submitting a written request to the mayor, and the mayor will work with the council members, that's already in code now. That's in code today. And so the strikeout, you're offering a suggestion of 1, submit to the city clerk, and the city clerk will work with staff and get it on the agenda, or 2, work with the mayor. Or another suggestion that's been made this evening is from Vice Mayor Lane that would keep number 1 and say that the staff or the council member will bring it forward to the mayor. Is that what you're suggesting, Vice Mayor Lane? And then the mayor shall put it on if it's within our jurisdiction. So it would get put on?
Absolutely.
Okay.
Yes, sir. And I'll clarify that. In our city and cities across Arizona, the responsibility for setting the agenda sits on the mayor's desk across the state, including here. And so I think all we have to do is if a council member wants something on the agenda, they take it to the mayor. And if I come to you and I say, I want this on the agenda, it is under the purview of the city council. It shall, not it may, not it should, it shall be put on the agenda. And just to clarify to Council Member Campbell, writing a letter to the clerk puts the staff in it, and I don't want the staff involved in agenda setting items that the council brings forward. It should be the council and the mayor only, not staff. It's not the staff's responsibility or business on what it is that we want to bring forward. It's our responsibility to do that. So if somebody in the public wants an item brought to us, we're going to put it on the agenda if it's under the purview of the city council. That's clarification.
Okay, thank you. Councilmember Dolan?
I'm going to choose my words very carefully on this because I agree. I don't think that staff should get in the middle of it and tell us they can't. I don't think the mayor should have the authority to say it shouldn't be on there. I do like the system we have right now that it comes, I think it should be done in public forum. Bring it up. If you want to talk about school buses and talk about school buses, but then instead of it being, I think the problem we have right now is that it just needs a second, and it's the fact that it seems like the same person keeps making things to bring to the agenda, and the same person keeps seconding it, and I have some very personal issues with that. If things that have come up, that maybe then we should make it simple. Just be a third person on council if we want to have it go to that next level, because it is important to bring stuff to council. There's a lot of things that can be resolved outside. There's been things that brought up, and I didn't know that. I didn't meet with the city manager. I didn't look into that. There's a lot of things that just because we don't know being up here on council, we shouldn't. This isn't our only way of doing the government's work. I mean, we sit, if I want to have a question about something, I'll go meet the city manager, city attorney, I'll meet with staff, and then once I'm prepared, then I'll bring it to council. Unfortunately, in the past, we haven't done that. We just, all of a sudden, somebody in the crowd wants something and we just give it to them. You know, I had the people that were responsible for death threats for myself and the mayor. They were mad at us and they wanted to look into fuel prices because I own a gas station. And one of the council members up here said, city manager, can we look into that? That's not in the purview of the city. That's catering to the people in the audience. And I think it should have been 3 people to keep things like that from coming before us. There has been issues that don't belong at this level. And so, like I said, I think we solve that problem with anything that comes before council that's going to get approved is going to need 4 people to approve it to even do anything. So if you can't, during your presentation, get a third person to say, yeah, no, that's important, I think we should have that discussion, then I think it'll end right there. So that's what I'd like to see. As far as the times, I'd be willing to move it forward to 5. I think that'd be a pretty good option. I'm either way on that one. So thank you.
Yeah, thank you for your comments. All right, so now it seems that we have 4 pathways that we've discussed so far. One is no changes, leave it the way it is. The second is Vice Mayor Lane's suggestion. Councilmember Campbell had a suggestion, and now Councilmember Dolan has a suggestion. So, is there any consensus or thoughts about which way to move forward? I mean, and just for the record, we keep talking about the mayor as in third person, as if I'm not the mayor. So the elephant in the room, I think it's fine any which way. We don't stop things from the agenda. We made it easy in the process. When we updated the ordinance in 2019, it was to make it easier for council members to get something on the agenda. And so that's never what the intent is. But it can be very awkward when at the end of a meeting, the person that's responsible for chairing the meeting, in this case the mayor, is surprised by something that's never been discussed ever before with any channel whatsoever about a future item. And we scramble at the end. If any of you have seen it, and many of you that are in the room have been here, and you've seen kind of that interaction with staff, like what and how, and do we have the right information? I think that's what I heard at the planning session that we were trying to overcome, and how this even got in front of us today to talk about it. There's also other avenues to get things on the agenda. So we're just right now talking about how council members get things on the agenda. There's still a way for the mayor to get things on the agenda, and there are ways for citizens to get things on the agenda, independent of those channels already in code section. So this is just one small piece of that code section that we're taking a look at, and we just have to determine if we're going to move forward or not move forward. if we are going to move forward, what does that look like for us? So,
Mr. Mayor,
Yeah,
may I just add one thing? I am going to take it personal. What was just set up here was very personal. But I'm looking at not this council, but I'm looking at our future council. Right now, I believe every single one of us on this council can knock on our mayor's door and he will listen to us. But that doesn't say what will happen in the future with a new mayor or new council people and what those personalities look like in those relationships. Not doing it in an open forum is letting the public out there know, I didn't hear you. Because I could very much bring it to the mayor, and for whatever reason, whether or not he thinks it's in the jurisdiction or determine if it's the best course of action, it means I didn't hear you if it doesn't come back in as an agenda item. By me being able to put it as an agenda item and getting a second, it means that I heard you and it's worthy of being discussed. And that's all I have to say. I am going to take it very personal. Very, very personal, because it was called out more than once because of Campbell, Councilmember Campbell and I putting things on the agenda. I've been on this council for 9 years. This is the most action that I have seen on this council in those 9 years of putting items on.
Yeah. So, Councilmember Lynn, would you be open to leaving future discussion items and taking Councilmember Dolan's position that it would take 2 additional council members to join on board, so for 3? So it's still in a public forum. It would take 3 council members. It seems to be maybe a compromise that can be achieved, and we might be able to get consensus on that. Would that be something you could be open to?
Well, pretty much no. We just more or less said there's 2 council members that wanted something put on, and we seconded each other's, and it wasn't going to get a third. So no.
All right. So are there any additional suggestions of something we can do to move forward? Councilmember Campbell?
Yes, I would never take away the mayor's right to be able to put agenda items in placement. It says on number C, the mayor may submit items for placement on agenda, providing written notice to the council members, which we get is our agenda package. That's what he does. And when I read our council person's handbook, it clearly says that the mayor is the chair of our meeting. We, the city council members, are the legislators. I cannot legislate properly if I'm not allowed to ask questions I may have. For instance, if I ask for a discussion item, anybody that wanted a discussion item up here, I'd second you like that, because I care about everything you have to say. I would, because I trust you and your constituents that elected you. That's what I would do. No question. So the problem is, let's just say it goes back to the staff, and the staff says, we don't have any jurisdiction, we can't make this happen. I feel that you guys would be okay that I came back and said, by the way, we talked to the staff just said there's no jurisdiction, we don't really probably need to talk about it much more than this. I think you guys would be okay with that, other than possibly taking my rights away from even asking for discussion. And I need to know what the staff is thinking sometimes to make really good laws. I need to know what my colleagues think. Because again, if they vote down what we're doing, but we have one item, which is a discussion, that means I want to find out what is legal, what is not legal. We ask for clarification all the time. Number 2, if it comes back, we don't even put it on as it's an action item because it doesn't go anywhere. But if I then need to put it on as an action item because we need to change an ordinance, these are the tools I need to govern you. And I think a lot of you are here today because you've heard me. So I thank you for all coming out today. I'm not trying to cause a bunch of problems here. I just want to protect our rights to be able to put whatever we want. And that's why I'm saying it's okay to go to the city clerk instead of, because the staff puts items on the agenda all the time without even talking about us. So that's my point. If we want to go back to keeping it just the way it is, I'm perfectly okay with that.
Thank you, Councilmember Campbell. The only challenge with the suggestion you're offering is it doesn't solve the issue that Councilmember Lynn had mentioned, that she wants to have the public forum to be able to voice that she wants the item on the agenda. Is that what I heard from you?
I'm saying I want it to go back to the way it was. Just go back to the original ordinance. We shouldn't, I mean, if the point was to, we didn't like the optics, that's why I was suggesting just submit a little letter into city clerk. They'll work it out. They'll talk to me. I have meetings with them all the time. And if they come back and say, oh, by the way, then the optics aren't even with you. But if it comes back that I call up and say, what happened to that item I wanted? And they said, well, we're not putting it on there. Then I'm going to say, I need to be able to come in front of the public, tell you what I want to have happen, and hopefully one of my council members will second me. If they don't, it's dead in the water. It goes away. But that would be the last result. Not every single item that comes to us or that we want to put on the agenda shouldn't be a first and a second for optics. We can get rid of that. So I'm saying one step, city clerk. I don't have to worry about open meeting laws violations because I've already talked to 3 other council members. Now I'm submitting it to you. That makes 4. We're not legally able to do that. So I'm not causing any, it says right there, the mayor will submit the items on the agenda. The mayor definitely does all that. But he gets tons of items on the agenda that have nothing to do with us council members, and he lines them all up. I've seen him do it. He's very strategic on that. So that's what I have to say. I hope you guys are listening.
Yeah. So thank you for your comments, Councilmember Campbell. There's nothing nefarious on how things get on the agenda. Most everything you see on our agenda is regular routine business or state statute requires it or city code requires it to come before council. So I do move things around on the agenda, certainly, usually to ensure that items that are going to be engaged with the public are up first so that if you have other things to do, you can move on with your evening or stay with us all night, either way. But that's, I'm hoping, what you're talking about by your comments that I move things around.
What I was saying with that, Mayor, was not everything that we bring to the staff is our idea that goes on agenda. That's what I'm saying. And then I'm saying, once you get it, I know you review the agenda. And if you have some concerns, you have, it says right here, all the rights to assist with that.
Yes.
You add things on and take, not in a bad way. Yeah. If you understand, I'm saying, he says, maybe we got to move that one up to there, that one down there. That's it. Nothing strange, nothing weird there. That's not what I meant at all.
Perfect.
I was just trying to say, you are absolutely the mayor and you have a lot of direction. Is that a better word for the agenda?
Yes.
Okay, thank
you. And then just one other point of clarification. We don't need to go back to anything because the code still is the code. Yeah, this, again, Ms. Gary just presented this as an item for discussion only. The code remains the code unless we give direction tonight to move forward with additional code changes. All right, so we still have no consensus, so we need to be able to determine what, if any, we're going to do to move forward on this item. So let's get ourselves a win on the timing. Is everyone open to changing the time?
Yes.
Okay. So is everyone open? I heard one recommendation of 5 p.m. I personally like 5:30 better. It gives folks that do have a traditional 9 to 5, which I know not everyone does, but it at least gives them a minute to get out of work and make their way up here. I like Councilmember Koch's thought on this. We do have students that come through the civics program. We also these are business meetings, so we have people that are conducting business with the city, and they are needing to get that business done, whether it's a zoning issue or a liquor license or whatever it might be. So I'm open to that as well. Let's maybe have that conversation. We'll get ourselves a win there, and then we'll come back and tackle how we get things on the agenda. So, Councilmember Koch, yes.
I can support 5 or 5:30. Like I said, for the same reasons you said and I had said earlier, I just think with the kids that come and the people that are doing business, sometimes we're here a little later. We've had staff that have been here sometimes 6, 7 in the morning. They're here late too. So I just think we can get these meetings started a little earlier, be more convenient for everyone. So I'm good with 5 or 5:30. I can support either.
Okay. Thank you.
I'm good with 5 for 30.
5:30?
Mm-hmm.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I would also say 5:30 to give people working a chance to be over here because we want the public here whenever possible.
Yeah, thank you.
I agree. I'm good with 5:30.
Okay. Councilmember Lynn? Yeah. All right, perfect. All right, we got ourselves a win. All right, new start time is 5:30 for our council meetings, and just for the record, we're here all night, so this is not really for us. This is just to conduct business, make it more efficient for the citizens. We're here, so it's not about moving it up so we can get home sooner or any of those types of things. It's really in the best interest of citizens. All right. Now, let's circle back and see how do we want to get things on the agenda.
Mayor,
yeah, Councilmember Moses.
Can I just add some thoughts?
Yes.
I think at the retreat, Jenny's intent was to make things easier, to get it on the, that was her intent the whole time. And I thought it was a great idea to work through some sort of a process to, you get the idea and then you sleep on it, vet the idea, figure out, talk to, Miss Gary, figure out what's legal, what's pertinent, what's not. Sometimes you change your mind, sometimes you won't. and then ask whoever that may be. I'd be okay with it being you or city manager to get that on the agenda. But what I think their concern is if that doesn't happen, if they are just beating their head against a wall kind of deal, do they have a recourse after that? And then will they be able to come to a public meeting after that, you know what I mean? And then say, hey, I want this on the agenda. And then if they get a second, to be able to still do it. So that would be my preference. I want to make it easy as possible. We don't have to do it at the end of a meeting. You can do it through the city manager or mayor, but they still have some recourse, some safeguards where, hey, look, like I've been asking you for this for 3 months now. What's going on? Not getting any headway. I'm going to put it, I'm just going to bring it out in public kind of deal. I would be open to that. I have no problem leaving it in your hands to start kind of deal, because that's kind of how it is now. This is kind of how I've always operated. I've never had a problem with getting something addressed or getting something on the agenda or anything like that. But that's the most reasonable way forward, I believe.
Yeah, thank you for your comments. I mean, the truth is we're going to be here and we're going to talk about items, and that's just how it's going to go. I absolutely understand and appreciate Councilmember Lynn's comments about it's not always going to be the seven of us. I mean, that's going to change over the years, and what do we do for future years? I mean, it really sounds like to me as this discussion's going on and kind of as I'm hearing the points and thoughts from council members of the council, that it can stay the way it is now, but maybe just internally, like we look within ourselves to say, hey, is it appropriate? Should I maybe give the mayor a heads up? Should I maybe talk to staff first? And if not, then at a subsequent meeting, come back and say, hey, at the last meeting, a citizen mentioned this, and I really think we need to have that discussion. I mean, I think we can handle it internally, as I think Vice Mayor Lane said. We're all adults. We can handle that. But I think it's the surprise factor, and then it just going back in a month ago at our planning session, what I was hearing is really kind of like, I believe, and I don't want to put words in your mouth, Councilmember Koch, but what I had heard was that it almost looks like it's orchestrated, like it's a kind of synchronized, if you will, in how to get things on the agenda. And I don't think that from an optics standpoint, that was what kind of spurred that conversation. Again, it was a brief 2-minute conversation that occurred, but that's kind of what I got out of it. So.
Mayor,
please.
Again, absolutely. I'm glad we're having this discussion, and I don't necessarily have any changes in my back pocket that I want to make. I've been on council a long time, worked under 2 mayors, never once had a problem putting an item on an agenda. So I don't care specifically for my purposes what the process is, because I've never had a problem with any of the processes. They've always worked for me. Maybe that's just me. Maybe I got lucky. I don't know. But some of the conversations, some of the things that come up, I just want us to be cognizant and have this conversation that sometimes the way it looks, it doesn't appear good. A, and B, we need to step back and not knee-jerk react to certain things and make sure that if we're going to bring something up, that we've thought about it, vetted it, and that we're making a good choice. And that's it. Having this conversation is healthy. It's healthy to have these conversations and revisit things. It's, like I said, I've never had a problem. My main thing, and we were told to come with ideas, was the time of the meeting, and then this just kind of fell under the same section of the code. So more than happy if we leave it, but again, if we had this conversation, it's on top of mind now, it's awareness, and we are all adults, and hopefully that the conversation was good and it was healthy for all of us to have.
Yeah, thank you. All right, do we have consensus to leave it as is? Is that Councilmember Moses and Vice Mayor Lane? Okay, so we have a consensus. Then we'll leave code section as is. Ms. Gary, if you want to prepare a motion for the time of the change, this is a public hearing. Would anyone like to address the City Council on this item? Please just make your way to the podium. State your name for the record.
Hi. Joan DeZuro, DZURO, Mayor and Council. When I first saw the first item, not the one that was changed, I became very concerned. As the ordinance in the package of the public, as we just talked about, basically said that it was being left up to the mayor and city manager to put things on the agenda. And basically, I caution against any one person being the sole arbiter of what is placed on any agenda for the city. Whatever language you land on tonight, which I'm very grateful that you're staying with what you have, I hope you'll keep that at least any council member or the mayor may bring forth issues to be discussed, and as long as at least one other person on the council agrees the item can be discussed. Each of you represent over 60,000 people in this city. You work here, you volunteer here, and being among the residents, you hear our concerns on issues every day. Each of you needs to bring those items forward that you agree are of concern for many residents in this city for an airing, a discussion, a debate, and maybe even a decision. I've served on numerous boards in my career. I was a Rotarian for over 20 years. I served on their boards for several of those years, and I served as president of 2 of their clubs. I was on the board for many years for the National Human Resource Association and also served as their president in Ventura. Was VP and president of 6,000-member HOA with a $23 million annual budget, and there were others. All of these, the board's members each had an opportunity to bring something to the agenda that was of concern to the members that were in those organizations. And as we listened to what they were concerned about, I understand you have different regulations than a nonprofit board, but the general concept is the same. You represent people, and as our representatives, you have a responsibility to make sure our concerns are heard, discussed, and when possible, addressed. This job is not easy, and I thank each and every one of you for being willing to do it. You will never please all 60,000 residents in this city, but by listening to us, bringing concerns forward and debating them, and hopefully coming up with resolutions when possible, you will go a long way to continuing to make Lake Havasu City the wonderful place it is today. Thank you.
Thank you.
Good evening, Council. My name is Frankie Lyons. I'm a 17-year resident of this city. And like I've always said, I've seen the good, the bad, and the oh my God. You want to change stuff? Every time that Michelle and Nancy Campbell vote on something, not one other member in this place supports her, and you act like they haven't vetted their choices and their concerns. They're listening to the community. A lot of you are not. Not one of you people, after 17 years, have ever spoken to me about my opinions on stuff. Cal, I worked for you. I quit for a reason, and I understand that these people are dedicated here in their own opinions and for their own needs. But most of you people, you're supposed to work as a team, and you don't.
Hi, my name's Holly Ontiveros. I'm really appreciative that it seems to be the discussion to keep it as is, but I still want to read my statement that I wrote. Before that, I'll say that it does seem like a knee-jerk reaction from a 2-minute conversation that something was stricken like this and put up. I understand it's a discussion, but it's also possible action based what was written on this paper. So this was what my statement was based on. I'm here to speak in opposition of the introduction to Ordinance number 23-1307, Section 2, City Council requests. If passed, this amendment puts the entirety of power in the mayor and the city manager's hands on what can be discussed. If citizens approach a city council member with a concern, the member can only submit a written request to the mayor for it to be added to the agenda. This is, speaking of optics, seems like a power grab, and effectively silences the council whom we elect to represent us. The city council serves as the city's primary legislative body and appoints a chief executive officer called a city manager to oversee day-to-day municipal operations, draft a budget, implement and enforce the council's policy and legislative initiatives. The mayor, although elected as the voice of the city to the state, is a regular voting member of the city council and has no legal privileges that differ from other council members during a vote. This legislative body is the voice of the people and should not be silenced by the executive branch. This is settled and directed in the Arizona Constitution, Article 4. A mayor does not nor should not attempt to constrict the issues brought by the council in the form of rules, convoluted procedures, or manner outside the regular rule of order and representative form of government. This is a policy of tyrants and tends to lead to a recall response. So I strongly urge all council members to vote no on this proposed amendment.
Thank you. And then, just for the record, for those just tuning in now at home, we're not proposing to make any changes to the ordinance. Other than the time. Yeah.
Hi, I'm Bonnie Toy. I just want to say that I like the time starting at 6 o'clock. I know it's not my place to make you guys start at 6 o'clock, but people have a hard time getting out of work and coming here. And I understand meetings are running late, but I think that's kind of a good thing because people are getting involved and actually paying attention to what's going on and not just sitting at home complaining that things are changing and they're not doing anything. They're actually here paying attention. So that means more people are listening. For your changing the request for items, I understand you're not going to change it now, but I just want to say that after the last year and a half or whatever so of coming to almost every city council meeting that I possibly can and paying attention from beginning to end, I really appreciate those members that ask for future discussion items to be placed on the agenda because it shows that they're hearing the 60,000 citizens and they're not ignoring them and they're not hiding from them. And if I understand why Michelle or Nancy may feel a little bit attacked on this issue because generally they're the ones who are asking things to be put on the item, on the agenda. They're the ones who are sitting there going, hey, can you listen to this? Can we listen to that? I really appreciate that as a citizen of Lake Havasu. I appreciate that our council members, some of them are willing to step forward and go, hey, I'll ask for gas prices to be looked at. Why not? Only to find out that they're not in the purview of the city, which I don't understand why. Although I do appreciate that Vice Mayor Dolan at that time was willing to discuss it because, in case you don't know, he does own the gas station. So, but really grateful that you're not going to change that part of the meeting now. Thanks.
Yeah, thank you.
Hello, Mayor, Council, David Diaz. So I was one of the 2 citizens that sat in that 8-hour budget planning session, and very informative. And I'm glad you're going to leave it the way it is. But I thought when Jenny Koch brought it up at the meeting, and I thought there was consensus on it, that the main reason that was brought up was someone could put up suggest an item for a future agenda, and the bad optic was because it had to get seconded. And that wasn't happening sometimes, and they wanted to eliminate that optic. So we were going to just say the new rule would be that you could just put something on the agenda and not have it to be seconded. That's what I thought happened at that meeting because I was there the whole time, but maybe I misheard or whatever. But I am glad you're going to leave it the way it is.
Thank you. Would anyone else like to address the council on this item?
My name is Robert Fisher. So I think this whole discussion comes from the concept of once burnt, twice shy, because we've seen our government do things that we really didn't like. We see it almost daily in the news that government is not reason, it's not eloquence, it's force, as evidenced by this next 2 agenda items where we're taking tax money and giving it away to various charities in the city. I'm not sure that's within the purview of the city council. So to hear you guys say, well, this stuff isn't in the purview of the city council, you guys do a lot of stuff that's not in the purview of the city council, in my opinion. So leaving this thing the way it is, it took a lot of discussion to finally get there, and I was kind of confused by some of it, but I'm glad you're going to leave it the way it is to get stuff on the agenda so we can at least discuss it. And I appreciate your participation in that. Thank you.
Thank you.
Cal Sheehy and council, thank you. And I want to thank you all for keeping it the way it was. And I just want you to know that we're not the other cities. We're Lake Havasu, and we're like the golden city in Arizona. We are what the other cities look for because we are an amazing city, and we want to keep it that way. We aren't knee-jerk citizens. We are citizens who love Lake Havasu City. We work here. We pray for our city. And we come to you for our voice. And that's what your job is, and that's what we expect. Once again, I want to thank you for keeping it the way it is, because it is our constitutional rights to be a voice and to speak. And thank you very much.
Thank you. Would anyone else like to address the council on this matter? All right, we'll go ahead and close the public hearing and bring it back to council for any additional discussion, comments, or a possible motion. Yeah.
Mayor?
Yeah, Councilmember Campbell.
I motion to, suggested action, let's see. I move to introduce ordinance number 23-307 with no amendments to 2.04, section 2.04.080, and except for, what am I doing here? Thank you.
Yes.
Appreciate that. Okay. I knew there was a time ordinance in there too, which was weird. Okay. I move to introduce ordinance number 23-307, amending city code section 2.04.080 to revise the regular city council meeting time to 5:30 p.m. That's that. Oh, piece of cake.
And that was ordinance number 23-1307. 1307, just for the record. Do we have a second on that?
Second.
All right, we have a motion from Councilmember Campbell and a second from Councilmember Dolan. Is there any additional discussion? Seeing none, we're ready to vote.
Motion carries 7-0.
Great, thank you. And that was one of the reasons we wanted to bring things forward at the planning session, so we could have some discussion on things. It's not necessarily mean it's going to change, but we do need to talk things through. So thank you for that conversation. We'll move on to the next item on our agenda, which is item 7.3, award of the American Rescue Plan Act grant program funds to local community organizations to support social service community needs. Ms. Ware.
Mr. Mayor.
Councilmember Lynn?
Yes, I need to recluse myself from this, please.
Okay.
Good evening, Mayor and Council. The item is the Community Resource Coalition's recommendation to fund local community organizations with a portion of the city's American Rescue Plan Act, or ARPA funds. This was a totally new program, so I'd like to walk you through what the you and the community through the overall process that the city went through to bring this recommendation to you tonight. It's a little lengthy, so I apologize for that.
I'm sorry, Trina, Mr. Mayor, if I can, just speak directly into the microphone. It's going to help out the people in the back.
Okay.
Back floor. Thanks, Trina.
Perfect.
So, the process began with the City Council deciding to provide a funding opportunity for local organizations to assist the community in responding to the COVID public health emergency and economic impacts. So how it started was on April 26, 2022, the Lake Havasu City Council allocated up to $1 million of the city's ARPA allocation to support local organizations. The City Council established the Lake Havasu City Community Resource Coalition to develop a community resource request, to develop an evaluation process, to evaluate it, and to recommend funding to the City Council. The coalition consists of 5 regular and 2 alternate members. We went out to the public and asked for people to apply, and 17 outstanding community members applied. They truly were outstanding, very professional. It was amazing how many people came out. So I hope if they weren't on this committee, they'll apply for other ones. Interviews were conducted. Members were recommended to council. The recommendations included community professionals with varied backgrounds. We had educators, we had people with grant knowledge, and we had people with nonprofit knowledge. Council appointed the members by resolution. Council guidance was pretty broad. They wanted to fund projects that must impact the community, be self-sustaining, and support one of these areas: food, housing, medical services, child care, senior adult care and services, or other social services. So we began with a very rigorous program creation. Remember, we're starting from nothing and creating a program. The starting point, staff prepared a request for assistance, which had a request for assistance and a basic rubric. The draft was based on very, very large communities, multi-million population communities, because small communities do not do this very often. They don't have the infrastructure to do it. They don't do it. So this is new. The first 3 meetings, so we had 3 meetings that discussed the program design, the program criteria, the application, the scoring rubric, and how we were going to get it out to the public notice. The program design, they had to develop a description and nature of the grant program itself, identify who was eligible to apply. They needed to right size it for the community. And when I say that, they, knowing the community, immediately looked at the application, the request for application, and said, no, that's not right size for us. An application, a request for application is like a blank page, and the organizations would have to figure out what we wanted to see. So they said, let's develop an application where everybody's answering the same questions. They needed to come up with some submission of instructions and dates, timelines, whether we were going to hold a pre-application conference. They had to review the scoring, and the period of time that they needed to do that. They had to discuss funding limitations. So they had no idea whether we'd have 5 organizations apply or 100 organizations apply. They had no idea, so we had to they discussed funding limits. Are we going to limit it low or high? And they did put a $10,000 limit on it, meaning that was the minimum to request. And then they discussed whether there would be single or multiple awards. So the discussion was, if somebody came in and asked for $1 million, but they were going to put in $10 million of their own, would that be considered? So they needed to discuss that too. So then they focused on the criteria and what they felt the rubric should be built on. And it was community need, whether the organization or the people that they serve were impacted by COVID. The program does it have community support, because that helps demonstrate whether it's sustainable. The program itself, how were they going to evaluate whether they were successful? What were their benchmarks? The geographical location, this is meant for Lake Havasu City residents. The organization and budget, does the organization have a mission? What is it? Vision, what is it? Who are their leaders? Are they financially sustainable based on their budget? And then identifying partnerships, coordination, and innovation. Are they offering something different to the community than what's already being provided? Lots of stuff. Then they worked on their application. The application, like I said, they decided we need an application where we're asking the same questions to everybody and they have opportunity to fill that out. So they developed the application, the budget. We needed a line item budget, a narrative on the budget, and then also community recommendations to show do they work with others? Do they plan to work with others? So then, after developing that, it took us, I think, 3 tries to get that done. We had the program and the application posted October 10th of 2022. We had a pre-application conference held October 21st, 2022. We accepted applications for 9 weeks. That was a big concern for the coalition, that we provided the organizations plenty of time to submit their application. So we hustled to get it posted, to provide as much time as we could. Again, we didn't know if we were going to get 5 or 100. We had 19 organizations submit their application. The coalition set a time frame of December 12th to January 6th to get the scoring in. The coalition provided staff their rubrics individually, and then those were totaled by staff and ranked highest to lowest. We had 3 additional meetings to discuss the rubrics. And the discussions, I'm just going to kind of go over high level what the discussions were. First discussion was should we just fund the top 7, because that's all based on the request. That's all that we could get in with the 7 of the 19 with $1 million. Total amount requested was $2.4 million. Other discussions were geographical concerns. Some of the organizations service other communities. So how do we make sure that it goes to Lake Havasu City residents? There was a discussion on adhering to the agreed upon process. They went through the evaluation of the application of the rubric to set a very fair, what they felt was very fair process, and to deviate from that, would that be really fair to the community, because they based it on fairness. They also discussed opportunities for organizational savings to fund more, and by that I mean, we'll get to that. And then discussion on whether we asked them to do it for less, whether they could achieve their goals with less money. So they ended up asking the top 10 organizations to submit a revised budget at 80% to determine if the project or plan could be successful at that level. Further discussions included general concerns, geographical concerns of service. Again, make sure that it stays in Lake Havasu City, and duplication of services. Do any of the organizations, are they duplicating services? The actions that they took. One organization was eliminated for duplication. There was discussion with both organizations, and after listening to them, the coalition felt that they were too similar. So they left the higher ranking one on the list and eliminated the other one. The coalition then requested the next 4 scoring organizations submit a revised budget at 80%. And they were able to do that because they eliminated the one. We had one organization that they requested, My Kid, to revise a 3rd time. Their questions were on duplication of services, whether their class was different from like what the school provided, and again, asking them to make sure that how they were going to make sure that it only went to Lake Havasu City residents. They service other communities. Then the results, we're to the results now. So the results indicate how well the coalition developed a program that fit the community. I think this is important, again, because they're professionals in our community, so they know our community. And they really wanted to right size it that fit our community. And I think that's an important piece of this, that they know our community. So the distribution and recommendations are, the resulting distribution recommendations are diverse in services. If you look at who's on the list, they're pretty diverse, and the organizational size is very diverse. And with that, I would take any questions.
Yeah, thank you, Ms. Ware. So as Ms. Ware said, this was new and unprecedented. The ARPA dollars were the American Rescue Plan dollars that were part of federal legislation that came to cities and towns throughout America. And when we were having this discussion originally back in March and April of 2022, there were certain requirements. And one of the requirements was basically social service needs and infrastructure needs. So those are kind of like the two tranches that could be used for these monies. Those rules have since changed, but at that time, that was what the rules were. And that's why at the direction of council, we gave staff the direction by resolution to create the Community Resource Coalition. And they did a great job. I would like to thank Trina Ware and Kelly Gary. They jumped right in, Kelly obviously from our city attorney and Trina from finance, to be able to understand. It was very complex, hundreds of pages of regulations and what could be used and what couldn't and how do we put these together. I also would like to thank the outstanding members of the Community Resource Coalition, applicants that applied to be on the board, and then those that actually were on the board and did the good work. And so I'm gonna name them because they really did amazing work for no cost to our citizens to go through and vet all of this. So Vijay Sari, she's in the room this evening. Thank you for your efforts leading the way. She was the vice chair and then elevated actually to the chair midway through and was able to carry that going forward. Barb Smith, who also happens to be here, thank you for your leadership. Leslie Denny, who's here with us this evening. Dr. Kristen Mann, which was integral. Jamie Festadagel, Ashley Pasquale, and Don Klostermeyer were the 5 regular members and the 2 alternate members that did really good work. And they did exactly what the council asked to do based on the resolution. And as Ms. Ware had mentioned, it was very broad, and we intended it to be broad because the way that the regulations were written at the time, the federal regulations of how the reporting and money had to be spent, allowed us to be broad and give an opportunity to think outside the box and see what all of those things might come to be. Again, we had 19 applications, and that really happened like on the last day. So I think we might have had 3 or 4 leading into the last couple of days of the deadline, and then it jumped all the way up to 19. And the Community Resource Coalition, I was not in the meeting because obviously they would be coming back before us as they are this evening to make a recommendation to council. But I did watch every single meeting and the engagement that the Resource Committee had with staff and the staff had with the Resource Committee to be able to put all the pieces together. The input from the different organizations was fantastic. And so I think all of those components kind of get us here tonight to make the final say, as the resolution outlines, is basically the discussion and final say here this evening. So with that, I'll open it up to any members of the council that have any questions or comments. Councilmember Moses?
Yeah, I just had a couple of quick questions. You mentioned those geographical concerns, and I'll actually reiterate what Mayor said. That coalition did a fantastic job vetting and making sure they put in a ton of work. I watched from afar and just really appreciate everything they did. They did the citizens of Lake Havasu really well with their processes and a lot of tough decisions, but they did a fantastic job. So were all of those on this list that we have in front of us, the 11 that are listed on here, were all the geographical concerns met or concerns actually eliminated?
Yes.
Okay. Just because I think it's important for our citizens to know. And then also, how are we going, is there a process in place for how we're going to follow up that this money is actually used how it should?
Attached in your packet was also the grant agreement that we're going to be entering in with them, and that contains any type of reporting that they will provide to the city staff, and we will follow up on that.
And just so everybody knows what that's going to look like, is it going to be quarterly reporting? And they're going to be reporting directly to you?
They'll be reporting directly to the city, yes, city staff.
Okay, awesome.
Yeah, and I think the keeper is actually going to be Ms. Ware, is who they're reporting to. She's the one that went through all the regs, so to make sure they're being met.
Then thank you moving forward too, because I know that's going to be a lot.
Any other questions, comments? Councilmember Campbell?
Yes, I'm extremely impressed. This was better than I could have ever dreamed. I love the transparency. I love the community coming together. Why did this happen? Well, the federal government did this one right. They saw a lot of 501c3s, boots on the ground, that could not have their dinners. They couldn't help Meals on Wheels. They were not getting donations. They were not doing their events. It really, the churches were shut down. I mean, they didn't do that right, but this part they understood. And I thought it was great that our community and everybody on the council here decided to take a portion of that money and lift them back up again. Because we depend on our boots on the ground. I think they do a phenomenal job. These are people passionate about what they do. Nobody would want to do a songwriters festival probably, but I did so I could donate the money back to K-12 to save music and art programs. I worked hundreds of hours on it. Nobody would have paid me for that job, but I loved it. And that's what I saw this community do. They came together, and a lot of the 501c3s that I've been seeing they were not even communicating. They were all doing kind of the same services, but I don't know what was going on. But through this past process, I saw this unity within our community, this lifting up of people, and it just brings me great joy. I appreciate it. I thank every one of the council members that trust the process, and I truly need to thank Councilwoman Michelle Lynn. This has been her passion and her love for decades, and we listened, and why she's sitting out there is she knows that she had to hand carry through some things too, and look what she's done for us. So you guys all of us, you elected a good one out there that's going to take care of your social services, and she'll always keep an eye on you for that. Thank you so much, Councilwoman Lynn, and all the council members on the board here that trusted the process. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other comments, or Vice Mayor Lane?
Thank you. I don't think I was one of the ones that you were thanking. Excuse me. So first off, I want to thank the coalition that was put together. Those people worked hard. They did exactly what was asked of them. We couldn't have asked for a better group of people to do that. To the nonprofits in this city, you guys do outstanding work. This city could not do what we do here without all of you working together. And I have to full disclosure, I sit outside the city council, not on the city council. I sit on 3 nonprofit boards. I'm the president of one. I believe in what our nonprofits do. Now, with that said, I don't agree with giving $1 million to the nonprofits in the city. And the reason I'm against it, and the reason I voted against it in the beginning, is we are taking tax dollars that the people have paid, and we're giving it to nonprofit organizations. Is that the right way to handle taxpayer dollars? Whether they came from Arpa funds or they came from local funds, these are taxpayer dollars. If we have extra dollars that we can give away on a grant, then we should be giving that money back to the people so that they can give the money to the nonprofits that they want to give it to. I know our coalition struggled picking winners and losers, to borrow your term. Picking winners and losers is very difficult because every single person that submitted for money needs that money. They all need it. And I wish it was a perfect world and we could fund everybody. But I don't believe we should use taxpayer dollars for it. And I've said that time and time again. But I'm just really impressed with the work that our nonprofits are doing. And I'm really impressed with the work that our coalition put forward. So thank you.
Yeah, thank you, Vice Mayor Lane. Councilmember Dolan?
Yeah, I want to thank the coalition. This was quite a process. I appreciate all the time and energy you put into it. To the applicants that put the time and effort into showing us what you're doing and I wish we had millions and millions of dollars because we do have the need here. And like David Lane says, all of us are on nonprofit boards all over the city, and there is so much need. And that's what is so unique about Havasu. I mean, we have so many service clubs, so many churches, so many, when there's a problem, we solve it. And the one thing I only disagree is, I do agree, we as a city government it's not our job to necessarily to take the tax dollars and give it the money this way. We're not set up that way. Actually, the state and the federal government are, and they do invest in social services and different programs. And luckily, this is one thing that they did they sent us a check and they said, this is one of the things that we can use it for. So I'm glad we have this unique opportunity to do this, because I think this is a great way to keep the money in the community. I support the recommendations. I appreciate the people that were on the board that made those decisions. And I thank Councilmember Lynn and Kelly Gary and for Trina for helping get everything together. So thank you so much.
Thank you. Any additional comments before we open the public hearing? All right, this is a public hearing. Would anyone, actually, we do have signups. So we'll start with Ms. Foltz first, and then we have one other, and then we'll open it up to anyone else who would like to speak.
Hello, Mayor and City Council and City Manager, City Attorney. So many people here. I'm really appreciative. I was at that meeting when there was a decision made, and I recall there being some discussion of whether or not it should be $1 million or $2 million. And I said, how great is the need? And well, then it became 1 million. I don't know how that happened, but as this process started, I, of course, serve on the board with River Cities United Way. I'm also the president and CEO of Western Arizona Senior Living, and we provide a lot of intervention services for seniors and their families throughout Western Arizona, but we are specifically, based in Lake Havasu City. I also serve on the Mojave Health Coalition, and so I'm quite vested in the issues revolving around our senior population. So with that being said, I approached June Weiss, who is the Dean of Health Professions, Human Services, and Public Safety for Mojave Community College. When I started talking to her about the Community Health Worker Program, and as well as with Debbie Pennington, President and CEO of River Cities United Way, the conversation was about the Community Health Worker Program, which exists in most other counties throughout Arizona and have in many counties for over 20 years. This program has been missing, which also was a catalyst for me to have that conversation whether or not this would be a good fit for River Cities United Way. So with that being said, I'd like to read this letter that June Weiss from Mojave Community College and myself composed. Unfortunately, June was not able to attend tonight, but she did ask that I speak on her behalf as well. Imagine a program that allows hospitals and health systems to address the needs of high-risk or at-risk populations, multiple chronic conditions, premature birth, social determinants of health, readmissions, emergency department, overusage, and provide direct services. This is the true potential of a community health worker program. In coordination with mainstream healthcare providers, CHWs, as they're known, offer health, wellness, and disease prevention and management services in order to decrease health disparities and achieve improved health outcomes, better patient experience, and increased affordability. A growing body of evidence-based practices demonstrates that implementing a CHW program is a solution that deserves meaningful and measurable results to hospital and health systems. Research has shown that CHW programs have resulted in an average savings of $2,245 per patient served, and communities can save $2.28 for every dollar it invests in a CHW program, all while improving the health outcomes of patients and communities. Just as you do, we recognize the need for novel approaches to expand patient access to primary care services, decrease unnecessary ED visits and patient readmissions, prevent disease, increase patient adherence, improve health and wellness, and meet the needs of an aging population. Mojave Community College is partnering with River Cities United Way and Western Arizona Senior Living to develop and offer the training through flexible scheduling options that lead to credentialed and eventually an associate's degree. So with that being said, I certainly hope you all support this community and bringing an amazing program to Mojave County, starting right here and staying right here in Lake Havasu City with those dollars. Thank you very much.
Thank you. The next speaker we have that signed up is Mr. James Beecher.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, members of the council. I'm a direct support. My name is James Beecher. I'm a direct support manager for My Kid. I just wanted to mention that I've looked at what other communities and other municipalities, even in our areas in Mojave County, are doing with these same type of funds that they received. And I can honestly say that this is the most diligent, fiscally responsible method of dispersing funds like this that I've seen. Your coalition, take it from me, we took a grilling, and they were very diligent about how your funds were being spent, where they were being spent. And I just wanted to commend the council for instituting that process and for your coalition for working so diligently for nonprofits and for the city. And I'm open for any questions you may have. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you. Would anyone else like to address the council on this item? Yeah, just make your way to the podium and state your name for the record.
Debbie Pennington, President and CEO of River Cities United Way. I need glasses now. So thank you very much, City Council and council members. It is with utmost thanks and respect that I want to extend a word of gratitude to the council for what they have done. You have opened up a channel for us to benefit from your unique programming structure and accountability. As United Way, we feel privileged to offer support to nonprofits through grant applications, insight into their cost and needs, and other means of assistance. This experience has led me to propose the opportunity of a cooperative coalition amongst these worthy organizations in order to better collaborate their resources and strategies. I strongly believe that uniting together can increase impact funding, enabling a more cost-effective way for these programs to receive much-needed items, such as backpacks, hygiene kits, and fixing broken equipment. The reach goes beyond what one organization can accomplish on its own, proving beneficial to all groups involved. It has been inspiring, sparking fresh ideas, as well as finding untapped resources by collaborating within the community, which is why I developed the How Can I Help approach. Furthermore, I do agree that it is not the city's responsibility to support the nonprofits in this town. However, let's look back at some important milestones we have accomplished working together, nonprofits, businesses, and city governance. Sorry, my mouth is a little dry. When COVID hit, it felt like our city was spinning in a whirlwind of uncertainty. It was in a fortunate turn of events, David Lane stepped up and became the city liaison to the Lake Havasu City Resource Alliance. His direction and hard work paid off as it allowed us to receive $250,000 in COVID funds that helped 48 businesses stay afloat. Through this initiative, many businesses were able to keep their lights on, pay rent without having to close their doors. Without David Lane's commitment to the cause, this may have not been feasible. His contributions did not go unnoticed. It was an impressive feat, Jenny, that our collective effort between business, city, and nonprofits resulted in the hospital receiving much needed PPE attire, sanitizers, and more to keep the employees safe. As if that didn't already make us unprecedentedly proud, an additional 400,000 PPE protection was distributed among schools, doctors' offices, and anyone else who asked for assistance. What's more is that various groups put together to produce masks and other items themselves as a way of combating such issues. And if all of this doesn't show our remarkable capacity to help one another in times of need, we have Haven, who rose up to the challenge when schools closed and kids were left without lunch by providing families with drive-through meals, a solution which was proved truly innovative. The Havasu Community Health Foundation really made a name for itself too, while taking on additional families amid the crisis, while also delivering through Van Gogh to those terrified to leave their house or at higher risk, health risk. I did not want to be up here and be too wordy, but to make a point that nonprofits collaborating with the city and businesses really helped to minimize some of the challenges that were being thrown at us as best we could. Jim, your business truly made a difference this year. The collaboration between us provided great relief for many people struggling to find propane resources for their RVs during the time of rising inflation. Thanks to your help and the initiative we took, the process was made easy. It's amazing that we can achieve with a shared vision, hard work, and determination. And Mr. Cameron, the generosity and community spirit, your business is simply incredible. Every year you make Thanksgiving meals for our community. And this year we were not only able to raise money and donate 75 turkeys to the food bank when experiencing a shortage, but also to contribute $1,000 in direct aid to the food bank. In addition, we participated in a food drive that produced 600 pounds of food in addition to what the food bank was already doing to help out those who are facing increased levels of food insecurity. This isn't just about low-income families, though. It even includes members of our workforce who have been struggling financially and had no choice but to reach out for help. We should all feel proud knowing that our support has made such a difference to those in need. Mr. Sheehy, I truly appreciate the help you provide with aiding members of our community when they are in need. You play an important role in creating positive changes, and your effort to refer people to nonprofit agencies is commendable. I'm almost done. Mr. Lane, I completely agree that the city taxpayer funds should not be used to provide grants to nonprofits. However, I strongly believe that the city should leverage state money directed to meet community social services needs. In the past, you have created a process to obtain those funds, and through the Resource Coalition have sought to prevent and put any potential bias in awarding funding. Collaboration is the key to any successful endeavor. And this is especially true when it comes to tackling the world's toughest problems. Nonprofits provide invaluable assistance in areas such as providing meals to those in need, sheltering vulnerable populations, preserving natural resources and ecosystems, and ensuring equal access to education, among others. We can collectively make a meaningful impact on these important issues as an added bonus of working together towards these common goals instead of competing against one another. Our entire communities become stronger as a result, and it may not always be easy. In fact, life isn't always fair. But empowering individuals and communities often comes from within for greater good. Let us all do our best to live up to our potential by asking, how can I help? And make a bigger difference.
Thank you.
Greetings again, Frankie Lyons. We were part of the process. They did an excellent job of putting something together that should make you guys proud. All these people out here, I'm going to say that each one of these people represent 1,000 people in this city. Okay, they don't represent just their organization. You've got people, the churches who take the battered women and children in. If we didn't have that, we'd have people dead on the street. We'd have kids that are trafficked. There's other organizations that provide food, clothing. The hospitals called our organization several times and veterans were involved. Hey, we're releasing this vet. We don't know where to go. We will go over and put them into a hotel room for 3 or 4 days so we can get enough time to get hold of another nonprofit organization to get them housed. If we weren't here, you wouldn't be here.
Okay, just make your way to the podium.
Barbara Smith. Good evening, members of our City Council and residents of our city. I'm speaking tonight as a member of the Community Resource Coalition, and these statements reflect only my views. First, let me express the gratitude of the coalition members to our council for allocating $1 million of Arpa funds to the nonprofits of Lake Havasu. It has been an honor to work with city staff and the nonprofit applicants. Excuse me. This was a task that we all took very seriously, spending many hours reading and scoring the 19 applications which were submitted. All of the organizations deserve recognition for spending their many hours writing their grant applications. And I certainly wanted to find funding for every one of them. As we scored the applications, it was difficult to keep our personal views, our emotions out of the equation. We all live and work and volunteer in Lake Havasu, so we're very familiar with the noble work of our nonprofit organizations. Having a scoring rubric made this a does the statement meet the stated goal decision rather than a personal like or dislike one. When the City Council first approached the idea of allocating Arpa funds to the nonprofits, the figure of $2 million was discussed. Thank you, Councilmember Campbell. To my knowledge, these funds have not been allocated to any other items. I am requesting that council members again consider grant funding, totaling an additional $1 million be allocated. Please do not let this chance go by to help many people in need in our city. We know we have many needs as a community, but this is most likely the only time we can rely on our federal government for grant funding that doesn't come with too many strings attached. Yes, we could use ARPA funds to lower sewer costs. We could use ARPA funds for recreational, health care, infrastructure, but it's not likely that we will ever again have the chance to give money to the nonprofit organizations helping those most in need in our community. Our city council should also consider keeping the CRC as a permanent board, similar to the Planning and Zoning Commission. There should be an entity to make sure that the nonprofits who were selected for the initial grant funds follow through on their submitted projects, including auditing the spending of the money, keeping the city council up to date on the project completion schedule, and giving quarterly reports to the city. This follow-up is required as part of the stated ARPA regulations. In the future, it could also serve in a grant procurement function, providing information on available grants to nonprofits and maybe even assisting in the grant writing. There are so many areas of need this coalition could help. Please do give deep consideration to continuing the work of the coalition. We've started it, and providing more funds to our nonprofit organizations needs to be continued. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Good evening again. I had no intention of coming back up and speaking, but funny thing is I was supposed to do my Pledge of Allegiance another time, and just so happened it got changed. So I'm thinking there might be another hand on the reason I'm here tonight. And I believe in a higher power, so I'm pretty sure he had something to do with it. I work alongside most of these people in here that are in these nonprofits, and I just want to speak up for them. I obviously came here looking for volunteers. I do get paid by the county, and I could get a better paycheck from working at In-N-Out Burger. So just for that being said, I'm pretty much a volunteer myself. The hard part is, yes, some of our money should go to pay other things. But when we look at what the state and the government and everybody else that pays half of our social workers, our people that work for behavioral health for these children that are in our system, it's sad. It is very sad. So if we didn't have the nonprofits that I see every day in the courtroom standing up for children, standing up for abused women, we would be in a mess in Havasu. And I hate to tell you, all the businesses that are here would be a mess because these children would have nothing. And we'd have more homeless. We'd have more problems on our street. If we do not solve our problem with the children in our system right now, our homeless population is only going to grow. Without our nonprofits, and I'm working with a few of them that are really coming aboard to try to make some difference for these children, because so many of our kids get shipped off to Phoenix. And once they're shipped to Phoenix, they're lost. And so if we don't start making difference in our children's lives right here in Havasu, we are lost. None of us are going to have a job. None of us are going to be sitting on this board because the city's going to fall apart. So I beg you, I urge you to really look into these nonprofits and be strong for them. Yes, the city needs some extra work, but you know what? We need these children, we need the families and that are going through some stuff to be helped. A lot of our programs are ran by nonprofits to help even parents that are suffering through drug addictions and alcohol addictions. And without these nonprofits helping them, they won't get the service. And they're not going to get it by somebody that gets paid under $19 an hour. So again, I believe I was meant to be here for a reason. I hope you listen to some of these people and what they're standing for. And I hope that you make a decision to make the right choice for our family and children in our city. Thank you.
Thank you.
Robert Fisher. So we've just seen with the last couple of speakers the beginnings of a tyranny of good intentions. Now they're going to come after that other $1 million next year because they want to be continually funded. And I think Ron Gould had a good idea at the county level where he took those Arpa funds and distributed them to all the taxpayers that wanted the refund and did not keep the money for the county and have to figure out what to do with it. He just simply refunded it to all the taxpayers. So it wasn't a lot, but I think it was the right thing to do. As perhaps someone suggested here already, that might have been a good idea, is just refund it to the taxpayers, because it is taxpayer money. And even though it comes from the federal government, we're going to rue the day that we allow the federal government to keep funding us, because it becomes, again, a tyranny that they want to take over and control what they're supporting. So I think that the idea that we're contributing to these nonprofits as a taxpayer under force of law is not the city's responsibility to administer. I think that, as we saw, these ladies, very good intentions, but they want to be funded again next year. And I don't think that that's what we had in mind with this first resource coalition, is to keep coming along every year with additional requests for continual support from the taxpayers. Thank you.
Thank you. Mm-hmm.
Hello, Mayor Sheehy, Vice Mayor Lane, Council. I'm so humbled and so appreciate being here tonight. Filling out the application, participating in the rubric, going to the coalition meetings was amazing. What a great way to do it. I feel, I guess I should say who I represent. Whoops. I'm the president and board chairman of Faith and Grace, domestic violence shelter, transitional living home. And looking at how we meet the criteria, we provide housing, we provide food, we provide medical, we provide counseling, we provide clothing for the women and children, all at no charge. Our residents are, when they leave their homes, are essentially homeless if they don't have anywhere else to go. So I just want to say thank you. Having the opportunity to apply for the money, hoping that we're going to get the money, it's allowing Faith and Grace. We've been in operation for 3 years. This is our 4th year. We have 3 years of good financials. We're ready to move to the next level, to participate in the domestic violence software in the community, to connect to our Arizona coalition, and to do all the statistics and the information that is needed to see where our community is, to be able to push a button and tell you that we saw or we served 286 women and children in the last 3 years. So again, I just want to take a moment and say thank you. And I'm very proud of our city. Thank you.
Thank you. Would anyone else like to address the City Council on this matter?
My name is Sherry Pontalillo, and I represent Impact 928. And I wasn't going to say anything, but I guess I am now. To the kind gentleman that has his concerns about spending taxpayer dollars, federal taxpayer dollars on nonsensical projects, I would say I 100% agree. I'm not a big fan of big government. I'm not a big fan of overtaxation, and I don't like how much of our money is spent. But it is what it is at the moment, and the city has an opportunity to help out our local community. And when I look at one of the big awakenings for me in participating in this exercise is that I got to know and see the hearts of so many people who have poured a lot of them full-time effort into helping other people in this community. And many of them are coming out of their pockets, just like our teachers do for their students. These people are coming out of their pockets. They're working their butts off to make a life for someone else a lot better. And none of these people, to my knowledge, have ever been feeding off of any grant programs and so forth. This is a unique opportunity. And to you, Vice Mayor Lane, I just don't see the plus in doing the same thing. When the money is there and you want to give it to the public or you want to do something else with it, what is going to change? Will more money be coming into these organizations? No, it would not. What else was I going to say? Oh, as far as asking to be funded year after year, as the gentleman spoke to, I don't see that as being an issue, because if you knew anything about the application process, you had to demonstrate your sustainability. And it isn't about coming back to the well next year. It's about demonstrating that you have a good background, that you have a sustainability, you have cooperation going on with other organizations. And I think that's the biggest takeaway, by the way, of our participation, to get to know who else we can help. In fact, we've already been helping in our group, other groups, because we got a chance to know what each other is doing, and it's really been cohesive and a wonderful thing to do. And my last thought is, I think that having some organizations that would keep track of and monitor how monies are spent, let me back up. We definitely have to be accountable and keep these funds separate, and I have no issues at all with the accountability of quarterly reporting. But I think there's some talk here about having a group monitor who's getting what help, meaning citizens getting help from the different organizations. I would just like to say one of the things that has made us uniquely successful, and I say us, all of these small organizations, is that we're responsive. When we get that call, so-and-so needs help, it's a quick text that goes out. Do we all agree? A couple of questions are asked and the money goes out. If all this ask and receive has to go through some process that becomes more bureaucratic, I think that could be a detriment. So I would just caution that when we try to organize to streamline, that we don't get over bureaucratic. And again, thank you. And yes, the coalition was amazing, and it was a fabulous process. Thank you for your consideration.
Yeah, thank you, Sherry. Would anyone else like to address the council on this matter? All right, seeing none, we'll go ahead and close the public hearing and bring it back to council for discussion or a possible motion. Vice Mayor Lane, did you have a comment or?
I did, because I realized after I turned off the microphone, I didn't really explain everything that I meant to explain. So I'm going to do that now, because I did vote no against this. And a lot of you out there know me because through my organization, I've written you checks. And I love writing you guys checks. And I felt that, as I said before, we shouldn't be doing this with taxpayer dollars. However, with that said, I respect the process. So the other council members voted yes, maybe not all of them, but the majority of the council members voted yes. So I respect that process. Whether I agree with it or I disagree with it, I respect that process. So my vote today has to do not so much with whether or not we should be giving taxpayer dollars. That was already decided a year ago. What my vote on today will be on whether or not I agree that these organizations should get the money and whether or not the coalition did the job that we asked them to do. that's what my vote is based on. So thank you.
Yeah, thank you, Vice Mayor.
Mayor?
Councilmember Koch, yes.
So I too, like Vice Mayor Lane, voted no on this item back last year, primarily for two reasons. One was the original conversation. Money amounts were not the same as what they voted on, what the item we voted on was, and I had a discrepancy with that. Second of all, I was on this council when we stopped funding nonprofits through grants with the city, and we did it for a lot of reasons and a lot of good reasons. We are not in the business to fund grants to decide what organizations are viable, what are not. And there was a lot of thought process behind it. It wasn't an easy vote. I worked for a nonprofit in this community. I have been part of nonprofits. I've been on boards for nonprofits. I love this city, and I appreciate everything all of you do, and the volunteer hours that go into it. You can't put a dollar figure on that. Having said that, this was a challenge for me because, as Vice Mayor Lane said, it is a process. When we make a vote, whether we vote yes or no when we walk out of here, we voted as a whole, as a body, and we support that, and that's how it should be. Not saying that I agreed with it at the time. And again, just like Vice Mayor Lane said, that's not what we're voting on tonight. If we were voting on that right now, I would vote no, because that's how I feel. I don't feel like we should be in the business of giving out grants. I think we have a lot of venues in this community that can take money and do that, and people can donate money how they see fit. But tonight, that's not what we're voting on. So my vote will be based on what we're voting on, which is the work of the coalition, which I think they did a wonderful job. I too watched as many of their meetings as I could, and it's a great group of people, and thank you for stepping up to the plate, because time, we don't have a lot of it, and it's invaluable, so I appreciate all the hard work.
Thank you. There are a few just clarifying points that were mentioned, something about the funding and what that all looks like. The initial conversation we had in April of last year was a proposal of $500,000 for the coalition. During that discussion, there was some discussion about increasing that. Eventually, I believe Vice Mayor Dolan at the time made the request to go to $1 million. Councilmember Campbell had mentioned $2 million, but discussion's a very loose term for that, because that was shut down pretty quick. Down to back to $1 million where the compromise was. So there's not another $1 million that's out there. I don't want that to go out there. I've heard that from many on emails and the like that I've received. There's not additional monies out there that have not been allocated otherwise. You'll see in our budget process that Mr. Knutson and his team are going through right now. As it comes forward, it'll be clearly identified in our CIP projects what items are ARPA dollars. And again, it's all based on what the federal government was requiring. And when we had these discussions last March and April, the requirements were completely different than they are today. We're still following the original requirements, which are more strict than what they are today. So just so that's out there, I don't want folks thinking that there is additional opportunity. I fully support the work that our nonprofits have done. We've worked really hard bringing the coalition, the Community Resource Coalition together, which is a group of 100 nonprofits that we have twice a year. And what our vision for that is to bring everyone together to have a shared vision, understand what all of the nonprofits are doing. We've been able to be effective in as effective as 100 people can be at one time. But what I've seen through this whole process is just what Ms. Pennington had mentioned, and Councilmember Lynn has mentioned it to me as well, is really truly understanding what each of your organizations do versus the bigness of the group and what we think your organizations do. Really through this process, we were able to determine what it is you truly do, the services that you do offer. So all of our nonprofits across the community do amazing things. That's why we live here. We're all involved in some way or another. Again, I appreciate the work of the coalition. It was tough work. I read through all of those applications as well. I don't know if I would have been able to fill out the rubrics as well as you all did. So thank you for that. And then also, Councilmember Lynn, thank you for your passion on this project. You've had it all the years you and I've served together on this council, and we're now able to take advantage of this very unique opportunity. It's very unique. This is not something that comes on a regular basis where we can do life-changing, impactful funding to be able to propel organizations. We've heard from some during the public testimony. It's going to take their organization to the next level. How fantastic is that? We have other organizations that are going to be able to help with some behavioral health challenges that many in our community face. And then we have other organizations that are no questions asked and take care of the immediate need before they get the wraparound services that someone needs to be a sustaining member of our community. And reading through the applications, these are citizens of ours. These are our neighbors. These are our family members that these organizations are helping. So again, thank you to all that are involved. I'll entertain a motion unless someone has any additional comments. Yeah, we'll start with Councilmember Dolan, then we'll go to Councilmember
You can
Campbell,
read it if
the
you
Vice
want.
Mayor. Yes.
I'd like to make a motion.
Oh, are you ready to make a motion?
Yeah.
Does Vice Mayor, Councilmember Campbell, did you have a comment? Okay, let's say Councilmember Campbell. If there's comments, then we'll go into the motion.
I feel that without the work of our 501c3s and our boots on the ground, how many more staff would we need to hire? How many people do they assist? How many people and services do they unite and save our tax dollars a lot of money? So again, you cannot hire this many people. I don't think we could find this many people that would want to come to work for the city. They would rather be where they're at, making great things happen. And to me personally, as a city council person, I would love to know the needs of the community on a regular basis. I would love year after year to get some sort of updates to find out where is our budgets at. I would love to hear from our own staff to know how many calls, like Kathy DeClark mentioned, how many calls did she go out and save our tax dollars because we didn't have to send a city staff out there. She took care of it in-house. So to say it's not a city council or a tax person's, our tax dollars are not wisely spent, I think the $1 million that we spent was probably worth about $3 million in the end, if not more, maybe even higher. But maybe someday we'll have a discussion from the staff, from our chiefs, and I'd really love to know how much work you save the tax dollars because you're doing it and we're not. I hope that there was a lot of clarification, discussion about tax dollars. We shouldn't spend city money, but what if we're saving millions because of the work you're doing? So I'm absolutely voting yes on this. I would have voted yes on $2 million because at that one particular time in your life, this was very unique. Businesses were afraid they couldn't open their doors. I was not donating as many funds. Donating back to the community as much as I regularly do. Churches weren't donating to the community. It was a once in a lifetime situation. So I do agree with you, Cal. This is not $1 million every year moving forward. But I think that whole pandemic or whatever was very detrimental to this organization. And I think we all agree with that. And that's why we stepped up and allowed the $1 million for now. But I do hope those are the tools to lift you up and let you just fly and take off and keep doing the great work you're always doing.
All right. Councilmember Dolan, do you still up for a motion?
Let's do this.
All right.
All right. I move to award ARPA grant program funds to beneficiaries as follows. Faith and Grace Incorporated, $157,280. The Clothes Closet Incorporated, $128,000. River Cities United Way, $161,856. My Kid Mentally Ill Kids in Distress, $130,168. Haven Family Resource Center Incorporated, $40,000. Open Table Incorporated, $50,000. Covenant Church, Lake Havasu, $39,216. Grace Episcopal Church, $72,240. Women with Willpower Incorporated, $40,000. Impact 928 Incorporated, $141,000. Child and Family Resources Incorporated, $40,239. And authorize the city manager to execute a grant and beneficiary agreement with each of the above beneficiaries.
All right, we have a motion from Councilmember Dolan. We have a second from Vice Mayor Lane. Is there any additional discussion? All right, seeing none, Ms. Williams is getting it ready for us to vote.
Motion carries 6-0 with one council member recusal.
Congratulations. Yeah. And again, thank you so much, Ms. Ware and Ms. Gary, for all your work on our end to make all of this come to be. All right, moving on to item 7.4 is discussion regarding the continuation of the Community Resource Coalition. Ms. Gary.
Mayor, council members. This item is to discuss the continuation of the Community Resource Coalition, and it was requested on January 24th, 2023. As we just discussed, the Community Resource Coalition was created by resolution by the City Council. The coalition met several times in fulfilling its duties and finalized its recommendation to the City Council at its last meeting held on February 9th, 2023. It's a great group of highly dedicated and caring individuals who took their task and their duties to heart. This coalition automatically dissolved upon the final disbursement and recommendation to the City Council. And as you just made your final decision, that board is no longer in existence. I work closely with Councilmember Lynn in discussing and developing her vision for the continuation of a Community Resource Coalition as she requested. She's not looking for the mere continuation of the coalition that was developed by the resolution mentioned previously. Rather, her vision involves a coalition whose mission is to address the needs of people experiencing distress in Lake Havasu City by acting as a catalyst and leadership resource, bringing the community together to promote and support social services and assisting people in need of assistance. The purpose is to foster communication between the city and organizations and agencies that provide social services, as well as to foster communication and collaboration between those organizations and agencies. Her vision of a coalition would be city-led, including possibly a city staff liaison and council member liaison and city staff support. Key individuals from social services, entities, and organizations could also have key roles in this coalition. The coalition will meet regularly, quarterly maybe, and will include all social service entities, providers, and partners in Lake Havasu City. This will enable the city and other organizations and entities to be able to direct people in the correct and available resources needed, to the correct and available resources needed. It will allow the sharing of encounters and needs of the community to keep up to date with necessary resources. It would allow the identification of community needs and gaps in existing services. Most importantly, it would improve communication overall between all the interested parties. Prevention is key, and this allows the flow of information and keeps everyone vigilant. It keeps the issues on the forefront of everyone's minds. Many people are in need and not seen and can easily be overlooked without being the intent. The end result is the betterment of our community for all residents. In summary, the vision is for the city not only to be a partner, but to take a leadership role. The city is the integral key in connecting all of the organizations and entity and the right people. It's an opportunity to provide regular updates on the services provided, what is new, what is coming, and how we can all help each other to provide the best care to our citizens. It is a way to feed off the energy and passion of those that work directly with those in need. Lastly, it's a way to share successes and inspire each other. I'll turn it over to Ms. Lynn.
Yeah, thank you, Ms. Gary. This is the second item that we have today that is brought forward by a council member, so we'll turn it over to Councilmember Lynn to discuss this a bit further.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I wrote down so I won't babble. Connecting the city and local social services have been something I have been advocating for since I took my seat on the City Council in 2014. It has been a challenge, but I never gave up the fight to do what is best for our community. Last year, this council approved putting together a resource coalition board to help distribute Arpa COVID money back into the community. The council was giving a presentation outlining where the federal government would allow for allocating those funds. Social service was an area that was highlighted in the presentation. With that being said, the coalition was formed and they had the daunting task of putting together the best way to distribute those funds. Given that this was a brand new process, there were some challenges. However, because of this task, many organizations will now benefit from this process. Thank you, Council. Which will help most of our vulnerable residents in Lake Havasu. As the current board has come to the end of its lifespan, I want to encourage our council to look at the benefits of continuing a functioning communication network between our social service organizations and the city. Our neighboring city, Bullhead, has had this relationship with its social services for many years. It was a former city council member that brought this need to the city manager at the time, and through their council's approval, the Bullhead City Homeless Task Force was created. I've spent many hours talking to Bullhead City staff and elected officials, including Supervisor Ignis, about what Bullhead is doing and working with the different social services in their area. The fantastic things developed because of this task force can be seen throughout their community. The Bullhead City staff, including code enforcement, public works, and the police department, have been able to better utilize their time and efforts in other much-needed areas because of the relationship with their social service agencies. One of the most significant connections is with Catholic Charities. When I asked for this item to be put on the agenda, there were concerns that I wanted the city to continue funding social services, and I wanted a board created to facilitate this. This is farthest from the truth in what I am proposing. After discussing with our city attorney what I was offering, I decided to get the facts and process of how Bullhead is benefiting from their task force. Debbie Pentington from United Way and I went to Bullhead and spent some time with Jeff Tipton, the social service director in their city. He is a city liaison for the Bullhead City Task Force. He gave us direction on how we can have the same type of collaboration with our city and our local social services. So what I'm proposing is simple. It would be a community outreach task force. It would consist of our local nonprofits, churches, and other social services combined into a resource coalition that is currently being developed by Debbie Pentington through United Way, a liaison from our police department, and a liaison from our city staff. I am not suggesting a new position of a social service director, but someone in one of our departments that could be the liaison to relay information to the task force where the city is having challenges, and which many of our social service agencies already intervene with. This task force can meet monthly or quarterly in the council chambers, where council members can attend if they choose. City staff that may have concerns or input in the areas they may be facing within the community, social service outreach organizations, and the public. It would not be a board that votes or sets policies or necessarily gives out funding. It would be a collaboration between the city and our social service agencies. Let's be honest, as a city, we are already involved in social services. Our fire and police departments are the first ones called if there is a crisis, an overdose, or a domestic violence situation. Our aquatic center, run by the Parks and Rec department, has people dropping in for needs daily. As a council member, I personally get calls on where to get help for families that are displaced because of rising rent and are facing eviction, are hungry, or can't pay their electric bill. So we are already involved. By creating this outreach task force, we are helping our citizens and giving our staff the tools to make their jobs easier. By ignoring the fact that we don't have social service issues in our city and that the city shouldn't be involved is just plain ignorance. We should not only be networking and partnering with our local social service outlets, we should be thanking them, because without them, many of the things they do would become the city's problem. This community outreach task force is an opportunity to work collaboratively with our city staff and our social services in benefiting everyone through the process. The 4 things that I'd like to see would be, first, a formal permanent community task force created. The second thing, a city employee representing as a liaison between the city and social service agencies, a law enforcement liaison, and a council liaison with no actual board members having to be required. The third, monthly or quarterly meetings held in the council chambers with no set formal process. And 4, the city manager to have monthly updates from city department heads on needs they may be experiencing in their departments regarding social service issues in our community, and those issues to be passed on to the Community Outreach Task Force City Liaison to be reported at the task force meetings. This is similar to what Bullhead City's task force is doing, and it's working. I'm also interested in what the rest of the council has with other considerations to add to make this task force as proactive and beneficial to the community as a whole. I hope that you understood my direction.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah, great job articulating that. So from my perspective, all of that, what you just said, yes, why would we not just make that happen? So I don't, what my apprehension was before about the continuation of a community resource coalition or an official board of the council is that it has to follow our really strict guidelines. So open meeting law, posting requirements, all these types of things, but having a meeting that's formalized with social service agencies throughout our community, having staff liaisons attend, that's well within the purview of what the city does already. We do attend different meetings within the community, not necessarily social services, but whatever it might be, depending on what the department that would be impacted by. So I would fully support that. It looks like what you're asking for, really discussion is just to have kind of the initial buy-in from council. There's really no formal action of the council to do that, but we can give direction to Mr. Knudsen as the city manager to pursue the wishes of the council based on this discussion that we have. So Councilmember Lynn and I have been talking about this over and over about different iterations of how we can put it all together. And I think we got there. I think what you just presented is something that's very doable and can get to work as long as the community nonprofits want to get together. But it looks like that's a sustainable project through Ms. Pennington at the United Way. So any thoughts from members of the council? Vice Mayor Lane?
Thank you. You put a lot of work into that. So my question and comments, it sounds a lot like when Mayor Sheehy became the mayor in what, 2018?
2018, yes.
When he started the coalition and everybody came together, we would meet at the Aquatic Center a couple times a year. It sounds a lot like that. So it's almost like a continuation. So I don't see a problem with having that continuation. The only issue I see is if we make it something that is an official city thing, now we're taking and maybe tying the hands of some of our nonprofits with saying, you now have to do meeting minutes and you have to report to the city. And I don't think they should have to do that. I think that, and I think you're the perfect person for it, absolutely. And you feel information that they share with you and you want to bring it back to the council, I think is an awesome idea. I think it's a great idea. If city staff wants to be involved, I think that's a great idea. I just don't want to tie the hands of the nonprofits by making it an official city function when they're already doing such great work and you working alongside of them.
Yeah, Councilmember Moses?
Yeah, I share some of those same sentiments. It sounds a lot like the meetings I've been going to, and we keep saying coalition, and I think it's important we clarify there's the coalition, we started to divvy up the money, but Mayor started the coalition a long time ago of just getting everybody in the same room, and it's been a very, very powerful meetings. We do a lot of the things that you just discussed about collaboration and seeing what holes we need to fill and who's doing the same thing, and I love it. I thought it was a great idea then, and I don't see the need to make it an official city function. I mean, I go to every single one. Cal, a lot of people are there, and a lot of the same people in this room are here. I think making it an official city thing is just going to convolute the overall goal and mission of what we set out to accomplish.
So, Councilmember Lynn, you're not asking it to be official. You just want the blessing of the council to give Mr. Knudsen the direction to use city facilities for the meeting and to have staff liaisons attend.
Mr. Mayor, I do want it to be a task force, currently just exactly what Bullhead City has. And I do understand the big coalitions that we have quarterly, but they're not doing what they're doing in Bullhead. I don't want to recreate this.
Yeah, agreed, yeah.
And I don't want to call any staff members out right now, but I know what they're doing up there and how it's working, and the city has to be that liaison. There has to be somebody within the city that relays that information. That doesn't have to be reported back to the council. However, if I was like the liaison or somebody else was the liaison, I would want to report that back to you after their monthly or quarterly meetings so that you know and you're aware. By not having this a formal board, what next time if there isn't a Michelle Lynn? What if there isn't somebody who's going to report back? What if there is not that person on council? So having that relationship with the public safety, it is so important. And I'm not going to bring the chiefs up here, but I guarantee they can tell you how much that their staff is going out for social service issues. And Mike down at the Parks and Rec, I've seen it. Mm-hmm. I have seen it. So not having them have an input as city staff of saying, these are what our needs are at a meeting that is led by the city, it's not going to do anything. And it's going to be right back down at the Aquatic Center and putting all these organizations together and they all talk. We'll do it no matter what. No matter what this council is going to do, it's still going to be done. It's still going to be done. It will be done with the nonprofits. But I don't think there's any nonprofits out there that would not want the city involved in it. They're not asking the city to control it. They're asking the city to be involved in it. Yeah. So I just wanted to clarify what that looks like.
Yeah, so we would give direction to have the staff be involved, but it wouldn't be an official board of this council be restricted. I think that we're just confused on that process. So it'd still be a task force. It would still report. It would still have city liaison. It'd be in city facilities. It'd be all of those types of things. So
yeah. It's just not a board. They're not a board that votes on things like our other boards. It's an advisory type board. So I don't know what the difference of that is. I don't know. Maybe
Yeah,
Your city
Bullhead
manager
Cities
can
is not
explain
done
that.
by resolution. So Bullhead City is just done by, they have the support of the council. So if we give the support of the council by consensus this evening to be able to do that, we just start that tomorrow. And based on Ms. Pennington's involvement on that side of it, we're only one piece of it. But from our side, theirs isn't by resolution at all. So we can do something very similar to that. Just for the rest of the council real quick, Mr. Tippin from Bullhead City, they run their own senior center. And so they have someone on staff that's the social services director, but it's because they run their senior center. We have a county run senior center here. And so we don't have that same dynamic necessarily there, just so that we understand we're comparing ourselves to them, but we are much different than them. So Councilmember Dolan?
What I like is the task force idea like Bullhead has. I was also very nervous about creating another advisory board, which it doesn't sound like it is. But I think you're right. We do need a level of officialness from the city. And like I said, I think we use the word task force. It gives our, to be able to have the service club, the service groups come, work with our police chief, fire chief, parks and rec. There are a lot of issues that I think maybe, and I think we've made it to this point with the coalition group that the mayor put together in 2018, and where we are with the grant funding and all that right now. We've come to this point. I think this is definitely a great next step to kind of just keep the city involved, keep the groups that have put a lot of energy into this, and like I said, it not official. Like I said, it can all be done at staff level. It's not a council appointed or anything like that. So they can still have the meetings, but like I said, we know that there'll be some staff there, and like I said, have that outlet to continue to the next level. So I support it.
Yeah, thank you. Councilmember Campbell?
Mayor, it almost reminds me of the Main Street organization. We have a liaison there, and obviously Anthony Kowalski's there, and we usually have a city council member there to listen to their needs so that we can lift them up and do a better job for our community. And I've ran a lot of businesses. I would not have been successful if I didn't find superstars in the field. And Michelle, Councilwoman Lynn, has been a superstar through all of this. We keep hearing that mayor started this coalition, but I would like to say that Councilmember Lynn has been doing this work for this community for as long as I've known her. And I would say that she was, I'm not saying taking away who's better than the other, but I think Michelle Lynn is not only educated in this field, she's been on the boots on the ground for decades. She cares about this passionately. I'm gonna get out of the way, and I'm just gonna say whatever Councilwoman Lynn wants for this. She's already proved her success with the coalition and the $1 million back to the community. As a leader, I'm out of the way. I want to see her shine and all of us shine under her leadership. That's what I'd like to see.
All right, so far we have more than 4 that support giving Mr. Knudsen the direction to be able to show the support of the city with this task force. Is there anyone that's opposed to it or has additional comments? Otherwise, I think we're...
Mayor, can I ask a
Yeah,
question? So the
Councilmember
task force that currently meets, is that task force, or not task force, the coalition, whoever came up with it, is that going to be like blended in with this so that there's not duplications, or is that one going to continue along with this one?
Yeah, so I think we see now that we took a break on the coalition meeting the large group as we went through this application process, because one, I didn't want to be in a room with people that were going to apply for money and then come back before us, because I didn't want to seem that anything was out of sorts. So we put a pause on that with this task force and the support from this council to give Mr. Knudsen that direction to move forward. Let's see how the task force does, and if we need to have a large coalition or have a coalition meeting twice a year just to get together and say, hi, how's everyone doing? Is there anything that we're missing? Then we can do that. I'm very nimble. I'm not sold to any of this. The real idea is how do we serve our citizens, and whatever that looks like, I could support. So, all right. So seeing that no one's opposed to it, it seems we have consensus. And Mr. Knudsen, you understand what it is we're asking of you and your team to do.
Yep, we got it.
All right. Oh, we do have to open to the public. Yeah, thank you. This is a public hearing. Would anyone like to address the city council on this item? Yeah, and there was one person that signed up, so I should, Mr. Beecher was first, and then we'll take everyone.
Thank you, Mayor and members of council. I came up here and told you how wonderful I thought the process for the Community Resource Coalition was. And if you can institute something like that, or this task force, then I think you guys are to be able to lead amazing things in the nonprofit and social service community. Many of you stated that you are involved in social services. Your police chief, your fire chief, they will all tell you that, these are social service issues that they're dealing with. And I think that this gives you as leaders an opportunity, a seat at the table. I'm very passionate about what I do with my organization, and I do that. And I sometimes don't see, and I'm sure that there are others here that are in the same position where they're very passionate about what their organization does, and they don't always see what other people need, and they're just focused on this. And I think if you lead the way in directing through this task force that this is what the city needs, I think you're going to be able to identify people that do it. I think you're going to identify people that are willing to do it, even if they don't already do it. And I think that this task force will give you your seat at the table with these nonprofits and these service organizations, and also gives us an opportunity to express to you what we're seeing in your community. So,
Thank you.
Hello, Council. My name is Jillian Usher. I'm the Executive Director of the Lake Havasu Museum of History. I first would like to thank you all for having a local nonprofit grant opportunity. Most of the nonprofits here are small organizations, small budgets, can't afford big grant writers. And so it was really great to have that opportunity where you understand us on a local level rather than a large national organization that doesn't quite understand who we are and the impact we have in our community. I also would love to give a special thank you to Councilmember Lynn and Debbie Pennington, and especially Debbie at the end of the award meeting last time, the fact that you came up and you shared the compassion for all the other nonprofits, and you're working to create a united way of us. See what I did there? So of us all grouped together. I really commend that. Yeah. And I commend you, Councilmember Lynn, for continuing that on a city level. I would like to say if there is a coalition and task force, the museum is the only historical and cultural heritage entity within the city of Lake Havasu. And so we would like to be the representatives of that. I think a way to mitigate having too many nonprofits involved in the one discussion would be to have some sort of separate councils that have a lead representative of that to streamline the knowledge. And what I would also like to ask is if the city is going to be involved and this isn't a separate entity, how is the city going to promote these nonprofits and services? What is the city's role in that rather than coming and listening? I think, of course, that is the baseline of what the city council should do, but there should be some sort of integrated platform to promote these organizations on a larger level. I'm not sure what that looks like without, delegating more work, but some sort of streamlined service. I know Debbie is working on something like that so that when you guys have requests, you're able to send people to the right agencies. Something citywide like that. Also promoting services so that somebody can find them without having to request. Sometimes when you're in a difficult situation, it's hard to make that ask and it's an uncomfortable and vulnerable place. And furthermore, I think that it's a great idea. I think that it's a great way also for nonprofits such as mine that have a very loose structure. One of our pillars right now is how do we integrate within the community and not be an attraction, but an asset for the community. And I think having a coalition is a really great way to have all these nonprofits in the city learn how we can collaborate and support each other. And so I really support this idea. I would love to be involved. The museum would love to have that representation for the cultural and heritage sector of the city. And I'm just really excited. And somebody born and raised here, I think this is fantastic. And I think it's going to be something that can leave a legacy for future generations to easily integrate into the social services collaboration. So thank you.
Thank you.
Hi, I'm Christine Watson with the Closed Closet Havasu Hope, and I'm really looking forward to working together with the city. I have been trying since we started this in 2010, and it's been very difficult because when issues happen, like those big fires we had with those 4 homes that burnt down, this town went nuts, but nobody knew where to go. Everybody called, people called us, people put it on Facebook, people did this. And the dream was when that happens, there's somebody that can say, hey, here, call this person. And then, like Have Us to Hope, we're hoping to be the hub of all that, so we can go ahead and put people out to all the different resources that are in our community. We have so many that are here, but nobody knows them all. So as Have Us to Hope gets started, I'm hoping to start making pamphlets and brochures because, I'm a printer, so I'm able to design everything. So I will put together all these programs and get all these different resources together. And someone comes in and we can say, okay, you have this problem, this person will help. We can have here, we can go over here, which is awesome. In the past, I have tried to work with different firemen and policemen, but somehow they don't all communicate. If there's a fire here, call this number, we can help with clothes. Because in the middle of the night, when there's a fire, sometimes you run out with no clothes and you got no clothes and nothing's open in Lake Havasu. So, but somehow that never got portrayed. So I'm hoping this coalition, by bringing a police and fire and into this coalition, that they can relay it to all the firemen, all the policemen, or whoever is on duty at the time that some catastrophe happens, that we can get these people help into services. And I really thank you for putting together this coalition, because I am so excited to get to build a shower for our community, because we don't have one for someone to come take a shower. So now we do. Thank you.
Thank you.
Debbie Pennington, River Cities United Way. I just want to clarify. It doesn't necessarily mean that we have to have a fire person there or a police chief or anything. All it really comes together is this. We are all intricate cogs in the system. We all have a specific structure that our agencies do in different programs that support different things. It's better to work on how that collaboration works together and how we can be more effective working together. And bringing the city liaison into that just says, hey, the police are having this problem when they show up to scenes, or maybe it's homeless or camping out over here. What can we do about it? And then our nonprofits hear that information, they go out, they address it, so the police aren't having to do that. So it's that kind of communication and that kind of back and forth that we're looking for to help handle any of the issues that are going on. We have the resources that do that. It's just about better coordinating and communicating what we need. That's it. And it's looking at how to better fund a lot of these nonprofits and bring those needs to the limelight so that we can really start focusing on how we can better keep sustainability for a lot of the programs these nonprofits have. So it's a little bit of all of that, but it's really mostly communication and coordination and better response systems that we can put in place. Thank you.
Thank you. Would anyone else like to address the City Council on this item?
No. I got it. No. I just dream one day I'll be tall enough. Okay, not really. I enjoy being short some days. I just wanted to tell you that I love the idea of you guys having a community resource coalition task force thing for Lake Havasu, and that if you guys think that it's not needed because we have no homeless or no people in need, then I just want to let you know you're wrong. We do have people out there in need, and people are homeless, living on the streets. And some people are, in case people don't know, living in cars in front of people's houses, and you don't even know it because they clean up in their friend's house. And there's just ways to help people, and I'm glad that you guys are going to be able to help people in different ways. Thanks.
Thank you. Would anyone else like to address the council on this item? All right, we'll go ahead and close the public hearing, and everything I said earlier stands. So, Mr. Knudsen, you know where to go from here. So, thank you. We'll move on then to our next item, which is item 7.5, is approve addendum Addendum number 1 to statement of work with Camtra Technologies LLC for Oracle Cloud Human Capital Management time and labor, payroll, accounts receivable, cash management, accounts payable, and other enterprise resource planning support for fiscal year 22-23. Ms. Olson.
Thank you, Mayor and Council. Most of you are aware of the technical expertise that we have been receiving from Camtra related to our financial system, our HR system. And they have done a tremendous job working as on the contract with us. They have the expertise that's needed to help us implement the remaining modules that haven't been implemented. When we budgeted this last year, we budgeted the full $108,000, assuming we'd need the full year, not knowing whether we would get additional staff in IT, information technology, approved during the budget process. So when the fiscal year started, we issued a purchase order for $45,000, just under the 50, thinking, not really knowing when the IT new people would be able to come on board. We don't really have anyone who's an Oracle expert yet, but we have 2 people in the IT department now who are working very hard and very closely with Camtra, and their expertise is improving. And so it's still our ultimate goal to get down to just one contract for maintenance and support related to the Oracle system. So tonight's item is just, we still need the additional hours because of the teamwork that's been participated in by not only the staff in the finance department and the HR department, but also the information technology department with Camtra. So with that, we are requesting council approve the amendment that would bring this up to the full $108,000, which is already included in the budget, so that we can continue with that process. And that's it.
Yeah, thank you, Ms. Olson. How is it going with recruitment for IT people?
We were fully staffed until we did get notice from one of our help desk people. So we do have that recruitment that just started, but otherwise we're at full staff and we're very pleased with how it's going so far.
Yeah, excellent. Fantastic. Are there any questions for members of the council for Ms. Olson? All right, this is a public hearing. Would anyone like to address the city council on this item?
Sorry, I just was curious about the whole addendum and what it meant by having to change it. I mean, if it was already budgeted for, then why is the change necessary? And how often does that happen? Because it seems to happen all the time.
Yeah, so in the budget, what was approved is $108,000 in the current budget. Admin Services did a purchase order for $45,000 of that $108,000, and then anything that goes over $50,000 has to come before council. That's what we're doing here this evening. They were hopeful at the beginning of the fiscal year that they would not have to spend more than the $45,000 initial purchase order. So, and then addendums come forward to council whenever they're needed. So it depends on the contract, it depends on the item, and it depends on what might happen. But when there's a need, it comes forward.
Is there a way to account for that before the need becomes extra?
This is an extra need. It's already in the budget for $108,000. It's just spending more than the initial purchase order was there, and it met now the council threshold of over $50,000.
Okay. I think I probably still don't understand that.
Yeah.
Mr. Mayor?
Yeah.
I think it's a good thing for the people at home to also understand too. What we do is, even with the next couple items, is we have the budget, we go through the entire budget process, we approve the budget, but anything that's over $50,000, even though it has been approved, still has to come to council, give an update, and then we have to approve it, again. So that's just why sometimes, well, why'd you bring it up? Well, it's already been approved in the overall budget, but anything over $50,000 has to come back before council. So not everyone always understands that. So I think it's good.
Good point.
Thank you.
Thank you.
All right. Would anyone else like to address the council on this item? Seeing none, we'll close the public hearing, bring it to council for any discussion or possible motion.
Mayor?
Councilmember Dolan?
Motion?
Please.
I move to approve addendum number 1 to statement of work with Camtra Technologies LLC for $108,000 for fiscal year 2022-23 and authorize the city manager to execute the addendum number 1.
Second.
We have a motion from Councilmember Dolan. We have a second from Vice Mayor Lane. Is there any additional discussion? Seeing none, we're ready to vote.
Motion carries 7-0.
Thank you.
Thank you. All right, the next item is item 7.6 is approve the cooperative purchase agreement with TYMCO Inc. and purchase of a 2023 600 regenerative air sweeper. Mr. Young.
Good evening, Mayor, ladies and gentlemen of the council. I am here to request $331,795.36 in cooperation with the Galveston-Houston contract to purchase the Timco 600 with the funds from the chip seal program that we didn't spend this year due to paving. And that will put a second new Timco being built. They're still at 240 to 300 days out, which if I look at Chief Pete's fire trucks at 3 years out, I'm doing pretty good. So I'll take that. As I said, this is through the Houston-Galveston contract. We looked at it expecting quite a bit of increase from our last purchase, I believe almost 6 months ago now, and it only went up $1,600. So I thought, man, I'm going to put this to Greg and see where we go, and here I am. So I think it's a smart move.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Young. You want to talk a little bit about your aging fleet when it comes to street sweepers?
Sure. I just had 2 go down today. So if we want to talk about that with the storm that just happened on Saturday, we hit about probably 70% of the town as far as the areas go. It's not heavy cleanup, but it is the same process of scraping the roads, filling in the road edges, and then getting the sweepers out. And we had 2 of them break down this morning. I believe they are from 2005, 6, and 7, I believe. All of them are over, well over 32 points in our point system. And we have been nursing them along for probably 3 to 5 years now.
Thank you. Are there any other questions for Mr. Young from members of the council? All right, this is a public hearing. Would anyone like to address the city council on this item? Seeing none, we'll close the public hearing, bring it back to council for discussion or a possible motion.
Mayor, motion.
Yeah, Vice Mayor Lane.
I move to approve the cooperative purchase agreement with Timco Inc. and purchase of a 2023 600 regenerative air sweeper in the amount of $331,795.36.
Second.
We have a motion from Vice Mayor Lane, a second from Councilmember Dolan. Is there any additional discussion? Seeing none, we're ready to vote.
Motion carries 7-0.
Thank you. All right, moving on to our last public hearing is item 7.7 is an approve the cooperative purchase agreement and purchase of 4 Parks and Recreation C-25 replacement vehicles with Midway Chevrolet. Mr. Young.
All right, so the challenges still exist in purchasing. This is not purchasing an additional 4 trucks. You guys have approved the replacement of these 4 trucks back in late January. When we put our order in with Ford, they informed us that we had an allotment of 1 this year, and we've already purchased it. So they were not selling to us. That is something that they took on to try to bring them up to speed. So next year they're not having the delays and stuff. So I can't necessarily argue that. Would have been nice to know that we had an allotment of 1. But that being said, our fleet services supervisor, Don Gable, went to work. He thought he had heard that Chevrolet was taking late orders, meaning March or April, which is extremely late. And in fact, they were. So we were able to, we will be able to, if you will forget your last approval for Santan Ford and reapprove for Midway Chevrolet for the purchase of 4 C2500 2-wheel drive pickups at the cost of $171.92.04.
Thank you, Mr. Young. Other questions from members of the council?
I have a question.
Yeah.
So, I mean, I know we get a deal from them. I mean, we can't do this with a fire truck. We can't go local and buy a truck. But I mean, are we that desperate to waiting years to get vehicles and equipment, something like trucks? Is that something we can buy local because they have them in stock rather than order? I know we get a good deal with this, but.
Sometimes they have them in stock, sometimes they don't. They don't always have the basic trucks that we buy. You're looking at upgrades and you're going to pay money to buy local. We've asked dealerships to get on the state bids, local dealerships to get on the state bids so that we could work with them. That choice is up to theirs. We do get a much better break when we buy off the state bids.
Okay, I'm just curious. Thank you.
Are there any other questions for Mr. Young? All right, this is a public hearing. Would anyone like to address the city council on this item? Seeing none, we'll close the public hearing, bring it back to council. Ms. Gary, I do have a question. Is there any way on the suggested motion we could rescind the action of the council from January 24th as part of that? Just because that's out there.
Yes, you could add that.
Okay. So I would prefer if a member of the council is going to make a motion to rescind our approval of the January 24th. Vice Mayor Lane?
And Ms. Mayor, I'll make that motion. So I move to rescind the purchase agreement with Santan Ford dated January the 24th and move to approve the cooperative purchase agreement with Midway Chevrolet for the purchase of the 4 Parks and Recreation replacement vehicles in the amount of $171,092.04 and authorize the city manager to sign the agreement and authorize city staff to exercise the option to renew for 3 additional 1-year terms.
Second.
We have a motion from Vice Mayor Lane, a second from Councilmember Campbell. Is there any additional discussion? Seeing none, we are ready to vote.
Motion carries 7-0.
Thank you. All right, next item on our agenda is item 8, the call to the public. This is an opportunity where citizens have to address the city council within the jurisdiction of Lake Havasu City. Your comments are limited to 3 minutes. There is, again, a light indicator box next to Ms. Williams. Green means you have your time, yellow means you have a minute remaining, and red means that your 3 minutes is up. Again, just keep the comments in the jurisdiction of the city and address the city council directly. So we'll start with Mr. Wilson.
Good evening, Mayor Sheehy, Vice Mayor Lane, and members of the council. My name is Justin Wilson, and I am a 28-year resident of Lake Havasu City. I'm here tonight to bring to your attention the need within our city for updating our sports facilities. I grew up in Lake Havasu and played sports here as a youth and an adult. My children are growing up here. I have nieces and nephews who are currently growing and playing sports here in Lake Havasu. In 28 years here, very little has been done to update our sports facilities for citizens. Rotary Park has pretty much stayed the same, the ball fields there, since I moved here in the early 90s. Sarah Park has pretty much stayed the same, and it is deteriorating and falling apart. The buildings out there are old and rotting. The fields need a lot of maintenance. The pitching mounds that are dirt are worn out and in need of maintenance. The portable pitching mounds that are placed on the other fields are also worn out and haven't been replaced in years. The fences out there make the fields only usable for certain age groups, so you're not getting the maximum potential of the land usage by only allowing up to certain age groups to be used out there. Same thing at Dick Samp Park. That park is the newest, and they were built over 10 years ago, those 2 fields, but they're only usable for ages up to 12. And anybody above that, it can't be used because the field is too small. So it's not being used to its potential out there. What else? The fields at Dick Samp could have been done properly, and I get it if they were done for budgetary reasons, but you got to use the most that you can out of the land, and you build bigger and adjust for smaller instead of going smaller and can't do anything else. Okay, so the city had a study conducted several years ago where they were advised that it would cost $12 million, I believe, to build 4 baseball fields west of the racetrack. I don't believe that that is needed to be done because you already have the infrastructure done at Sarah Park. It just needs to be redone. and properly. And in order to do that, you need to have a committee of people involved in using those sports fields who can give you the proper information and guidance when building, instead of doing something, putting a Band-Aid on something that is not going to work for the future. I have been involved in what's called travel baseball, travel soccer, or club teams for over a decade now. And I have traveled to other cities within a tri-state area of Southern California, Nevada, and Arizona. And those cities are all building sports facilities because they realize the potential of them. It is a monetary maker, and it brings people to their city to maybe move there and enjoy it. We are not doing that here. We have a lot of people who move to other cities because we don't have the proper sports facilities for their children. We're not doing what we can for everybody here. I get asked all the time in these tournaments, when is Havasu having a tournament? Well, we don't, because we don't have the proper field space for it. And it's unfortunate because we're missing out. We live in a desirable location, and Bullhead City, they host soccer tournaments and baseball tournaments. And I even get told by people that they don't stay in Bullhead because they don't like to. They stay here and rent an Airbnb and drive all the way to Bullhead to play. That's how much they would rather be here. So we need to address that. It's time for the city to move forward. I don't want to focus just on baseball, but we only have one outdoor basketball court, one full size. That is used up all the time in the summertime if you go down there and watch the kids play, to the point where there are 30 to 40 kids sitting on the sidelines that can't play. They have to wait a long time because they don't have the field. The football field on the island needs repair. There's parking issues. There's field usage issues. The lights are too close to the sidelines. You can't even use that for anything other than football. If you move the lights out, you can use that as a soccer field as well because they are wider than a football field. The baseball field out there at the island does not get used. The grass is terrible, and there's ants all over the place. Same thing with the football field. The kids get attacked by ants out there. If you talk to the coaches and the parents, they'll tell you. Last night I spoke in front of the Parks and Rec Advisory Board and brought this to their attention, and they agree that it does need attention. It is a need for the city right now. We've waited, and unfortunately the cost is going to go up because of inflation. And nobody likes inflation. I don't like paying $6 for a dozen eggs, but that's just what it is right now. You need to pay to get it done, and there's no way to get around that. We have several prominent business owners on the council right here and throughout the city who donate time, resources, and money to the youth leagues. And I don't think they do it for the tax write-off. I think they do it for the love of the children. It's time for the city to step up and do something for the love of the children as well. I know the city has a huge wants and needs list for items all over that need to be fixed and stuff like that. But this is something that I truly believe needs to be a need. The city council needs to move forward, and investing in sports facilities for the youth is investing in the city's future, because they are the future workforce. They are the future families of the city that are going to be there for the elderly to help take care of them or serve them or do anything. Do not think of this, when you're thinking about this, as what can we get monetarily back as a return of investment. Think of what are you going to get back from your community as this. You're going to get better citizens, happier citizens. And like I said, cities all over the state are building these big parks. Not just big, just parks, because they know that that's what they need for their youth and their citizens. We can't just have Rotary Park and a couple ball fields at Dick Stamp and really bad ones at Sarah Park. We have had tournaments there, and teams won't come back because they say they're terrible facilities. I recently went to Maricopa this past weekend, which is a town of 60,000 people, close to Havasu. And they have multiple baseball complexes within a quarter mile of each other, and they are not complex facilities. They are the basic minimum, but they're done right and properly, and those are being used up every weekend for tournaments and other things. So I would really like to see this go on the agenda, however that happens. And I thank you for your time, and I look forward to seeing you at your next meeting.
Yeah, thank you. Would anyone else like to address? It's called to the public. We can't respond. Yes. Yes.
I just want to say hi. I'm Bonnie. toy. I disagree with him. I agree with him. You do need updated park stuff, and the aquatic center, I will just say, I don't know what happened with the pricing for again, the summer months, just the summer vacation months for the kids to be able to afford. Like he said, you have stuff. I'd really like to see the summer months for the kids to be able to go there every single day and have fun and enjoy their summer and not have to worry about the parents or anybody else, the expense of it being too much for those kids, any of them. And they shouldn't have to ask somebody else to pay for them. They should be able to afford to pay for it themselves. And I'm just saying $1 days, $2 days. And I also did want to remind you about the tax rates for this coming year. I know you guys haven't, I don't know if you guys have started your whole tax thing, but we really want lower taxes.
I'm sorry, the irony there. That's very difficult, but point taken. Yeah.
And then I live really close to Anytime Fitness, and I know I've said this a few times, but it's a hazard. There are certain times of the day that there are vehicles parked on both sides of the street, and when you are trying to go through there, it's completely blocked. One car can get through at a time, and so if you're trying to get onto Lake Havasu Avenue, and if somebody's coming from Lake Havasu Avenue onto Sunflower, right there next to Anytime Fitness, it is virtually impossible. You have to like wait, pull over to a parked car. I really would like to suggest maybe perhaps making some kind of red stripe on the sidewalk, so maybe people, no parking zone on one side of the street or the other, just for safety reasons. What is that prevention? Oh my gosh, I forgot that quote. But I know Mr. Lane knows it, and if you know that an accident could happen, you can prevent it, and it is kind of our responsibility to prevent it. And just so you know, you need to prevent that accident from happening on Sunflower and Lake Havasu Avenue. Thanks.
Thank you. Would anyone else like to address the City Council during call to the public? No? All right, we'll go ahead and close the call to the public. Item 9, current events. Are there any council committee reports? Yeah. Councilmember Campbell?
Well, I've had a couple exciting things happen recently. One I didn't share with you, and I don't know because if it's a jurisdiction, but I was added to the Arizona Works Board for Mojave County. Supervisors nominated me, and I'm excited to get working for all of Mojave County and Yavapai for Arizona Works and all the good work they're doing. Yesterday, I had a really great meeting with RTAC where I was nominated to be vice chair of RTAC, which I'm extremely excited about. And one of the task force we're going to do is called Waste Materials Task Force, where we're preparing, I'm going to say for the sake of most people out there, the mills and that you get when you mill a road, you get these mills, they're called, so it's called a mill and fill, or which we're going to be doing all over the highway. What has happened over the years is it has created piles of waste material. And then we truck them, and the trucking companies pay a lot for that. So we're going to be working on a task force instead of them all going to landfills, and certain waste materials from industry and building constructions can be recycled into transportation infrastructure projects, such as roadway pavings, the benefits of using waste materials within our municipalities, including Lake Havasu City here. It does take a lot, and we'll be working closely with ADOT, and I hope that while we're milling a lot of new roads, we'll have a lot of specs and direction on how we can use them within our municipality, instead of having the taxpayers in a state level even paying to take them to recycling, or to waste landfills, because it's a major waste on our environment. And I would like to be able to use those materials and somehow donate them back to the communities if they need them, including storage units. Thank you.
Thank you. Vice Mayor Lane?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. As we had a Parks and Rec meeting last night, first one I got to attend. And so just wanted to give a brief update. Mr. Wilson actually gave a better update than I could. He came and spoke very passionately last night, just as he did tonight. And the board took to heart what he had to say. Now we just have to come up with funding sources. So, but those are things that we'll be able to work on. Dick Sand Park is done, as we saw in the city manager's report. There's no update on the downtown catalyst project, but it is still moving forward. And the air conditioning system for the aquatic center, still waiting on those things to get delivered. So, thank you, Mayor.
Thank you. Are there any other, Councilmember Moses?
Yeah, Mayor, Nomadic, the shared workspace is open. I think, as most of you know, because we got to tour it I think it was last week, and it looks beautiful. And they're all starting to get moved in. I think they're still waiting on their CO, still waiting on some trash enclosure door sign off or something like that. But they're looking good, and they're going to start getting people in there. I spoke with James today, and I mean, I think we're looking really, really good as far as occupancy rate. I think we're going to be right on par, if not above where we expected. So things are looking really good there.
Excellent. Thank you. All right. Future meetings. Our next meeting is on Tuesday, March 14th, 2023 at 6 p.m. or possibly, is it 5:30 that quick? Oh, but we have things. So we'll follow our website and know when we're at. But our next meeting is Tuesday, March 14th, and there'll be 5:30 or 6, somewhere in that area. And then Tuesday, March 28th, 2023 I'm going to venture and say it's at 5:30, but is another regular meeting. Item 11, are there any future discussion items? All right. Item 12, motion to adjourn. All right, we are adjourned. Thank you for being here. Be kind. We'll see you next time.